Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. Each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for joining me today here on Point of View. We're going to be spending some time today introducing what we call Truth Team 360. But let me just also mention that at the bottom of this hour, we'll have Jerry Tuma in studio with us with Cornerstone Financial, a certified financial planner. We're going to be looking at some of the things happening in the stock market and tariffs and those kinds of things. Next hour, we'll also have Foster Freeze in studio with us. Happens he's in town here to promote Rachel's Challenge. We'll talk more about what that means, and I think a much better way to address this issue of these school shootings. And in the third hour, if you want to listen online, Michael Farris will be with us, an individual that we've had on this program before, argued a case before the Supreme Court recently on the pregnancy resource centers in California, but also has another case with the Alliance Defending Freedom having to do with the baker there in Denver, Colorado, Jack Phillips. So we have lots to cover, but all through this program today and all through the week, a good friend has joined me in studio, Brad Fisk. And Brad, it's always great to have you with us.
It is wonderful to be here, and we're just grateful to join in a very exciting week ahead. I'm telling you guys, you do not want to miss even a minute of the programming, because we have got a stellar week coming your way.
Well, we certainly do. And we have a number of people that we'll be talking with, but we also use this time twice a year where we come to our listeners, and this is the first time our listeners in Dallas have heard this, so we may spend a fair amount of time in this first half hour explaining what Truth Team is, but it is an opportunity for you to join with us financially. We are dependent upon your financial gifts to bring these programs to you, and certainly we encourage you to give us a call. We'll give that number out in just a minute. We have a number of people standing by our phones to hear from you.
We do.
And of course, you can give a one-time gift, but really what we're looking for is Truth Team 360. 360 for a couple of reasons. First of all, we kind of got your back. We're looking 360 around you. But the other is that for as little as $1 a day, $30 a month, $360 a year, you can be one of the Truth Team members, or for a higher amount. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But we recognize, Brad, that it is really important for us to hear from our listeners, and their monthly support helps us to continue bringing these programs every single day.
That's right. And so when you join the Truth Team, we have a welcome gift for you that we're going to send your way, and we're excited about that. We'll tell you more about that as we go through the hour here. But here's an important number. Okay, this is the way you can join Truth Team 360 at any giving level, doing anything you possibly can do to make an impact on the future. 1-800-347-5151. That's 1-800-347-5151. You can also participate online at pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net.
Let me mention, too, that number will go to some of the women that are right next door. We can actually look out our window and see them ready to take your phone calls. You won't go on the air. I know some people say, well, am I going to have to say something on the air? No, you won't have to say anything at all. And, again, we certainly encourage your support. Now, you may have been listening to this program for a while. Of course, we've been doing Point of View for more than 45 years. However, in this particular radio station you're listening to right now in the Dallas area, this is relatively new. But some of you may have been listening to Point of View years ago. Brad, I've had people come up to me just in the last week and just say, I remember when Marlon Maddox was on KVTT in the Dallas area, and I remember hearing you and Penna Dexter and all sorts of people. So in some respects, we recognize there's some people listening right now that are saying, this is an interesting program. I've only been listening to it for a couple of weeks. Others that say, oh, I've listened to you for years and years. And we are certainly looking for your financial support. And as I mentioned, for as little as $1 a day, that's $30 a month, you can be part of the Truth Team. But we have different giving levels. Another one is $45 a month. And this was one that we came up with since we've been broadcasting, since Marlon Maddox started the show more than 45 years ago. And so we'll talk about some of the benefits there, and then we even have a higher level as well. So there are certain ways in which we certainly want to send you some kind of gift. These thank you gifts are something which are not terribly expensive, but they're really useful for you because they'll have a ministry in your life. So
that's right.
Let's talk about those for just a minute.
Let's do that. So at $1 a day, when you join the Truth Team at that $1 a day level, we have a product from Faith Comes by Hearing called the Bible Stick. It is a little MP3 player. It's not, listen, this is the player. You actually have headphones you plug into it. It fits in the palm of your hand. It's about a little bigger than the size of a pack of gum. And this has the entire New Testament pre-recorded on there with music, sound effects. Over 25 people, voices are involved in this thing. And so you can use this when you're exercising. You can give it as a gift to that college student that you want him to hang on to the Word of God. And this Bible Stick is an incredible, it has been very, very popular. In fact, I go so far as to say it's been the most popular gift I think we've ever had in the history of the ministry. It's just really, really sought after because you cannot buy this in the stores.
That's right.
It's not available retail. So we're giving it to you as a thank you gift. So why don't you be the very first one on this first day to pick up the phone and say, I'm going to join the Truth Team. We're going to make that happen right now. 1-800-347-5151. You don't have to have all the money lined up now. You can spread it out by the month, by the quarter, any way you want to do it. 1-800-347-5151.
Let me just mention, too, that one of the other things that you benefit from is we also send you the Outlook magazine and a variety of other issues, but certainly that Bible Stick at $30 a month or $360 a year is certainly a benefit. But in addition to that, if you would like to give at the next level, that's $45 a month. We, of course, send along the Bible Stick, which, again, is just a great resource. But for those of you watching online or for those of you on Facebook Live, let me hold up some of the booklets because we also make these booklets available. And those are things like Sharia law, the politicized culture, making your vote count, homosexual theology, privacy and surveillance. The one just came out on the Second Amendment and one coming out on capitalism and socialism. And these, you have actually had a chance now to see these, Brad. And I just think, if I do say so myself, these are great little resources to put in your pocket and hand to people and give you a chance in about 10 minutes to learn what we think are the most important issues on these topics.
The reason it's so popular is because our culture, if you don't know this, then I'm not telling you something that's new here. We want it now. We want it fast. We want to know what you want to say. Be in, be out, be quick, because we got stuff to do and we're busy. We actually had that thought in mind as this product was being created. So you can get through in under 10 minutes just reading about that particular issue. Give it to a friend. It fits in a shirt pocket or a purse. It's such an incredible, practical piece of information on topic after topic after topic because we're putting them out once a month.
We are, certainly. And again, if you'd like some of those back issues, when you call in just a minute here, just tell one of the ladies, and I'll be glad to make sure I put that in the mail. I don't want them to worry about that, but that's my way of saying we are waiting for that first phone call from our Dallas listening audience. And so I know that some people wait to the very end, but we need some people to start us off. We have a number of people sitting around in front of telephones right now waiting for that first phone call. So here's how you can do this. Give us a call at 800-347-5151. Again, that's 800-347-5151. Or, of course, you can give online. That's at pointofview.net. You'll see a very interesting and very colorful graphic. When you click on that, it says give, and that then shows you the Bible Stick. It shows you the various resources that are available. And, of course, we haven't even talked about one other club, and that will be one we'll talk about after the break. 1-800-347-5151. We'd like to hear from you. We'll be right back.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
You may have noticed that sometimes people who talk about the need to practice civility need to take their own advice. In the past, this has often been a problem for progressives. They talk about civility, but often engage in name-calling and vilifying others. Their dialogue is anything but civil. Even the previous president was sometimes guilty of saying one thing and doing another. But lately, it has been conservatives who have been guilty of violating their proposed rules for civil dialogue. What brought this on has been the strident statements by some of the students who survived the school shooting in Parkland. Let's just look at the bashing and sliming of David Hogg. He has been called a high school bully. Some erroneously speculated that he may not have been at the school the day of the shooting, and one commentator made fun of him because he was rejected by certain colleges. By the way, these examples are from what you might call mainstream conservative commentators. Of course, there have always been people and groups on the fringe who engage in what has been called conspiracy mongering. Those groups spread false rumors about David Hogg giving a Nazi salute. There have been the false story about the Parkland students tearing up a constitution. These stories are so extreme they hardly deserve a response. But the other examples I gave came from people who are respected in the conservative world and speak at conferences and conventions. The real test of civility is how you respond to someone who does not treat you in a civil manner. I think we all realize that high school students are going to say some things that are not well informed. Students who have been through a traumatic event like a school shooting are going to be saying things with anger and emotion. The test of civility is not to respond in kind. Romans 12:21 reminds us, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. That is an important principle to follow in the midst of these contentious debates. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For more information about issues covered on Viewpoints, visit pointofview.net. Pointofview.net. Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Hey, this is John Stonestreet, the host of Breakpoint and the president of the Colson Center for Christian Worldview. As a champion of Christians thinking clearly about what's happening in the culture from a Christian worldview, there are a few people that I look to for more clarity and confidence and providing clear answers to the big questions that our culture is asking. And Kerby Anderson, I love what happens on Point of View each and every day. And anytime I get the opportunity to be a guest on the program, I always think that Kerby is the best interviewer in the business. I encourage you to support Point of View with your prayers and with your financial support.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The
As you just heard,
is now.
The future is now, and certainly that is one of the things we're talking about. John Stonestreet, a good friend who's been on the program with us many times before. Individual, of course, that is the voice of Breakpoint, one of the voices, along with Eric Metaxas, and, of course, the head of the Colson Center. And we are in the midst of course, our Truth Team Week. And I think it's interesting, Brad Fisk, as we talk about this, that we are primarily right now broadcasting only on the Dallas station, but you would notice that there are all sorts of people listening in anyway. One of the comments here, actually from a couple of individuals now, that said they're listening from South Carolina, another one from another radio station there as well. So some of the people listening to the program are not in the Dallas area, and our first gift is not in the Dallas area
That's right,
either.
From Portal, Georgia. We want to say to a brand new friend, thank you, Kay, for your $200 gift. And, that's so exciting to know that we are so accessible the information we have, but it's so appropriate that's true, because what we talk about here day in and day out are life's issues where you're really down in the living it part of life. This is not theoretical. This is real stuff that we deal with every single day. And your gift will help us to continue doing what we do. We would love to invite you to join the giving team, whether it be at that level of $1 a day, less or more. But you do something. Step up and say, I'm here. I love this program and I want to help. 1-800-347-5151.
And again, we certainly want you to think about why you certainly would want to support this particular ministry. You have no doubt already heard some things on Point of View that you hear nowhere else. We even had a suggestion from Brad that maybe we do a issue just on all the topics we address that you never hear on the mainstream media.
That's right.
And even today, you're going to hear some things that you rarely, if ever, hear on the mainstream media. So that's just one more reason to support what we are doing here at Point of View. And just a minute ago, I mentioned the Truth Team. Let me finish that off. We talked about you can join at $1 a day. And by the way, if you go to the website, pointofview.net, and click on Give, you can see that Bible stick that we make available. Then at the second level, $45 a month, we call that the Anniversary Club because we have an anniversary. We just celebrated this last year of 45 years, coming up on 46 years. And there you can not only see the Bible stick, but these booklets, which I'm holding up again for those of you that are watching online, and we'll spend some more time talking about those in just a minute. But one other level, and that is what we call the Century Club, and that is where you receive the Bible stick and the booklets and everything else. But we add to that the Amazon Echo Dot, and we're recognizing that more and more people benefit from this because you can simply say, I make sure there's not one in the studio right now, Alexa, turn on Point of View. Yeah. Sometimes lately I've had it in the studio and it just starts asking me questions, but this is a way that you can actually tell it to play Point of View, and you can listen to it. Of course, you can get all sorts of information. We're also working on a project by which we can add some Christian content to the things you'll be asking it. So at $100 a month, you'll receive, of course, the Bible stick, the booklets, as well as the Amazon Echo Dot, which is a hands-free, voice-controlled device that plays music, reads news, and most importantly, allows you in any other kind of situation to listen to Point of View. So it's just a great resource. And these are our thank you gifts. We recognize, Brad, that people don't give to get, but we want to say thank you for your gift. And if you have not had a chance to call that number, let's encourage you to do that right now. This is a perfect time for you to call before it really gets busy. 800-347-5151.
Let me put a challenge out. Let's hear from 10 people total by the bottom of the hour. And so what we would like to do is have you give us a call at 1-800-347-5151. How about 5 of you who are listening online right now, and you could make a gift of any amount to say, I'm going to stand with you? How about 5 others who actually live here in the Dallas Metroplex? You're getting us through the radio station here. How about 5 of you stepping up and saying, I love this program. I've been listening for a little bit, and I love what happens here. So if you'd like to give us that call of support at 1-800-347-5151, you don't have to have the money now, and it's a simple 2 to 3 minute transaction, and you will have done something hugely significant. Without you, we cannot do what we do.
And again, let me just make the challenge to our Dallas listeners for just a minute, because as you just heard, our first gift came from Georgia. Some of our comments are coming from places like South Carolina and other places around the country. These are people listening online. You don't want those people outside the state of Texas to outdo the state of Texas, right?
Come on, Texas. Come on.
It's, I was with Chad Hennings the other day, and he'd heard about some givers outside of the state of Texas. And Chad Hennings used to be with the Dallas Cowboys. And said, it's time for Texans to get off the bench and get into the game. And I think in some respects, if he were here right now, and he has been on the program with us before, he'd say, it's time for you to get off the bench and get in the game. So we'd love to hear from you. 800-347-5151. And as we go through the program, I'll acknowledge that sometimes it gets pretty busy on the phone, especially as we are joined by over 300 other radio stations next hour, and then it's harder to get through. So if you want to get some personal attention right now, this is the time to call. 800-347-5151.
I'm thinking, Kerby, that there's some folks who are not familiar with fundraising on the air, and they kind of know, why do you need to do this? Why are we doing this? And we are listener supported. This ministry is dependent on our listeners to even be on the air for the last 46 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
45 years?
Yeah, just getting close to 46.
That's right. You were just mentioning it during the anniversary
Yeah.
gift. So, listener supported. I'll break it down for you. Listener, that's you. Supported, that's you calling us at 1-800-347-5151 and letting us know, I want to stand with you financially because I truly believe we need the voice of Point of View to continue. It's becoming more important than ever that this ministry be fully funded for the coming year. And you can help do that. Your gift can have an eternal impact at 1-800-347-5151, toll free 1-800-347-5151. Of course, online, pointofview.net.
You know, since we're right here in the Dallas area broadcasting right now, I thought I'd tell a Dallas story. And that is one of those individuals who has been so impacted by Point of View, actually works at First Liberty. Matter of fact, he's going to be with us on Friday, Jeremy Dice.
Okay.
And here is an individual that was listening to the program when he was literally in the back seat in the van with his wife, I guess it was his mother at that time, before he even met his wife, and listening to Point of View. And that's when he began to think about, maybe I can be a lawyer. In just a minute, we're going to hear something that reminds us of the fact that not only has he become a lawyer, and not only is he working at First Liberty, but he's able to, in many cases, help individuals dealing with religious liberty issues. And so your gift helps people like that. And so we certainly recognize that you are the winner in all of this. You are the person we need to actually help us bring those kinds of individuals to a situation where then they help others. And if you've listened to the program, you perhaps have heard Jeremy Dice. You'll hear him on Friday. We're going to bring him in studio, not only to talk about some of these religious liberty issues, but also just to tell his entire story of what it was like to sit in the back seat of a van while he was waiting for his sister to finish her lessons. I think it was a music lesson, and listening to Point of View, and then getting the vision for maybe going to law school and making a difference. And Brad, these are the kinds of stories we're going to be sharing over this whole week.
That's right.
Individuals that I know that have run for office, individuals that I know that have started schools, individuals that have seen how important it was for them to go to their school and raise some questions about the kinds of things that were being taught to their
kids.
Right.
And by the way, we're still going to have guests this week. Our guests are going to fill out just like we normally do. The program's not really changing this week. We're just adding another element, asking you to invest. So don't go away because we got some great guests coming up this week.
Well, as a matter of fact, we have Jerry Tuma is going to be in studio in just a minute. We're going to talk about some of the financial issues. And of course, I mentioned Foster Freeze will be with us the second hour, Mike Farris in the third hour, if you'd like to be listening online. So those are people that I think you want to be hearing from. Gary Bauer is somebody that we'll be talking about in the next hour. He'll be with us on Tuesday. But I love what Gary says. Don't make these people beg. You know, they don't get money from your tax. It's not like NPR. Yep. They don't get money from taxes. They don't get corporation grants. We are dependent upon these listeners to actually bring these programs to you. We're listener supported, and that's why we, as we go to a break now, encourage you to give us a call. That number is 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. Or, of course, you can give online at pointofview.net. And again, if you're in Texas, don't let those people outside of Texas outgive you.
That's right.
We need to hear from you right now. We'll be back right after this.
For years, we've been working for change in the future, voting for candidates who will appoint good justices, fighting to end abortion and protect religious liberty. The opportunity to finally achieve the change we've been working for is now. We've got an apparently solid justice for the Supreme Court, and strong rumors another opening may be imminent, a chance to shift the court from illegitimate judicial activist lawmaking to constitutional faithfulness for decades to come. There is renewed support for freedom of conscience and religion, an administration committed to upholding the law. No, not perfect, sometimes maddening, but arguably better than we've seen in any of our lifetimes. And the future is now. It's time for informed citizens, informed Christian disciples to keep the pressure on, to be faithful members of the Point of View Truth Team. Seize this moment. Make an important move. Call 800-347-5151 or visit pointofview.net/team. Together, we can finally achieve real and lasting change. 800-347-5151. and pointofview.net/team. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for being with it. Is Truth Team 360, and it is our Truth Team Week. And, of course, we have in studio with us Brad Fisk, and also we now have in studio with us Jerry Tuma, who is the president and founder of Cornerstone Financial Services, a certified financial planner, and just a good friend. Jerry, it's always great to have you here as well.
It's awesome to be here again, Kerby.
You know, Brad, one of the things we've been talking about is certainly the need for us to have listeners support this ministry. But talk about what happens when individuals do give to Point of View. What happens?
Well, that's a great question, because when you give to Point of View, it's kind of like dominoes. There's several things that happen as your gift has impact, because we're able then, when we're fully funded, to be able to get to guests and get to the decision makers in this culture who may not be thinking the same way we are, because we have guests on that are contrary to many of our viewpoints, but we have guests on that support it as well. And so your gift actually gives voice to things that the mainstream press are never going to talk about in a million years.
Well, and again, we educate and we empower. We certainly do all of those kinds of things. Jerry Tuma, you've been around. We've known each other for decades, because you were here when Marlon Maddox was broadcasting, and here as well today, and certainly have seen this. But what's kind of the impact that you've seen that Point of View has been able to make over these years?
Well, Kerby, it's all about changing mindsets. Tim LaHaye had a book years ago called The Battle for the Mind. And I really think that's where it starts in our culture. We've seen, kind of the parting of the sea, so to speak. You've got on the far left, which I think they somehow try to out-left each other over and over and over again, and then people moving more and more to the far right. The issue is, where does the truth reside? Now, this is Truth Week, Truth Team Week. The issue is that we're not going to win arguments just for the sake of arguments. We've got the data in front of us. So if you look at the difference between the humanist outlook and what the press says and all the things that we've been taught in schools and the dominance that they've had on the culture, if you will, on most radio, or most media outlets, as well as the school, what you find is they've been molding, if you will, the minds of the future generations. Now, that's what this ministry is all about changing, because we've got to change that, because if people's mindsets, if their paradigms are built a certain way. I know I had a huge impact when I first became a believer. I grew up completely unchurched. I didn't know what the word humanist meant. I went into a Bible study, started going to a Dallas Theological Bible Study type thing. And one week the teacher was out of town, so they played a video on humanism. Never even heard the topic. I realized all of a sudden the paradigm shift was not just a little bit. It was immediate. And overnight, I went from, wow, now I understand where all these conflicts of how I built up my belief system over the years on what I really believe is true versus what the Bible says, it evaporated. But it also felt like a mule hit me in the gut. I mean, for 2 or 3 days, I was in this state of shock. I don't know how to describe it. But that's, again, what the sword of the Spirit, the Word of God, does. It cuts and divides the spirit from the soul. Our soul is our mind, will, and emotions. So what this ministry is all about is doing that on a big scale. And I mentioned before we got on the air, Kerby, I don't know how you keep up with the variety of topics that you have a high degree of expertise in. But the bottom line is we've got to shape the minds of the new generation. The millennials tend to be socialists. They tend to be liberal on one hand. The Gen Zs, which is a little bit younger than the millennials, also are very conservative. So we've got this battle for America's future, and this ministry is right in the core, right in the center, if you want to call it, in some ways, the point of the spear on that. So the point is we've got to affect people's outlooks, and the only way you're going to affect that is giving them information that contradicts the socialism, all the humanism, and all the things that are in the media. The way to do that is through donating to this ministry, because you can affect minds, you can affect lives, you can change lives. The number, I believe, is 800-347-5151. Is that the?
That's right.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Or they can give to
reading upside down from your notes there, Kerby.
Yeah.
But that's the point. The point is to change these lives, and I can testify, again, because I started back. I guess you started a little before I did. I was in '87 when I first started working with Marlon and Point of View, and I know there have been millions of lives impacted by this ministry. All you have to do to partner with us is call again 800-347-5151. You'll change lives. This is in phenomenal ministry, phenomenal information. Again, the number 800-347-5151.
We talk about changing minds, especially young people. I think of Wesley, who said that because his parents were listening to Marlon Maddox, they decided to homeschool him and take him out of the public schools, which was kind of humanism 101 in the public schools at that time, and actually learn about how to apply a Christian worldview. I think of Rodney Hare, who was listening to this program as well and was concerned about the humanism in the public schools and decided to start a Christian school. So gifts in the past have that impact. Your gift today will have this impact for other individuals listening to this program. And Brad, that's one of the reasons why we bring to all of our listeners Truth Team 360.
That's right. And speaking of 360, how about three of you joining the team right now? Whether you're listening online, whether you call our telephone number, any way you want to do it, why don't three of you right now prayerfully consider becoming part of the Truth Team at that $1 a day? You can set that up any way you want. We have some people just pay it off. We have some people that do it by the month. Any way you want to do it. 1-800-347-5151. 1-800-347-5151. You can give in 2 to 3 minutes at pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net, and make a difference for eternity.
Talk about the impact that we've had in the lives of individuals. Michelle Bachmann, many of you may remember, a representative in Congress, individual that ran for the presidency. This is what she had to say about Point of View.
I was about 19 years old when I first met my husband, and he brought me out to the farm in Wisconsin where he lived with his parents. And every day at noontime, the radio came on, and my in-laws had the radio tuned to the Christian radio station, and it was Marlon Maddox's Point of View that came on. So I was still getting my footing for my faith. And this was very important because what Point of View taught me was the intersection of current events with my faith in Jesus Christ. And I just loved the show. I loved Marlon Maddox's personality. He was cutting edge. All the new things that you'd hear about in the news, he would be talking about on the radio station, but from a biblical worldview perspective. He very profoundly shaped a lot of my thinking during that time, and we couldn't wait to listen to it. Kerby does such a fabulous job. I've enjoyed being on the show with Kerby. It's needed now more than ever because it seems like too few pastors are willing to say from the pulpit what they need to say today. That's why I think that Kerby Anderson, what he's doing on Point of View, is probably more needed now than ever because we need to be hearing this on the radio if we aren't going to be getting it from our pulpits.
Former Representative Michelle Bachmann. And Jerry Tuma, you know, that's, again, something you and I've seen over the years. We remember when a guy by the name of Dick Armey walked into the studio that time and decided he was going to start knocking on doors, and Marlon took a liking to him. Of course, we saw what happened to his life. Michelle Bachmann started listening to this program at the age of 19.
That's amazing.
And it's kind of back to the point that you're making. We're talking about changing minds one individual at a time through this radio program.
Absolutely. And if you look at it kind of like seed planting, and I know that's kind of been overused in the high-end gospel giving type of deal, but let's don't go there. Let's just talk about it as seed planting, because that's one of the things Jesus used that analogy when he was talking about how, the thorny ground, and so forth. And there was the seed planter who went out, the harvester. He went out before the harvest, actually, and he planted seeds. That's really what we're talking about doing here. Michelle Bachmann's a perfect example. I mean, it's been impacted my life radically over the last 38 years, I guess. But what we're doing is we're planting seeds of information of truth, and then the Lord, the Holy Spirit, the Bible, all those, they will take that seed, cause it to become something that becomes, comes out of the ground as a plant, and will have seeds that will affect other people. That's how the gospel gets carried along from generation to generation. And this is a really important tool in the hands of the Lord, in my opinion, to continue that process.
How do we plant the seeds?
I think we plant the seeds by calling and being a part of our giving family at 1-800-347-5151 or pointofview.net. That's 1-800-347-5151 or give at pointofview.net.
And one of the things we want to do when we come back from the break, Jerry, is one of the articles you've posted on the issue of tariffs. We've been talking about that and the whole idea of what is happening right now in the economy. You've been watching that for years. And I think really that's something else, Brad, to mention, that you are just simply not going to hear some of the kinds of things that even Jerry Tuma has to say. And you might say, well, I can turn on Fox News and I can turn on MSNBC and I can turn on some of these financial channels. Yeah, but you won't hear the kind of perspective that we're going to talk about in just a minute from Jerry Tuma.
As Jerry just said, we look at everything through a biblical lens. Nobody else is doing that.
Correct.
Nobody. The mainstream press are not. They don't believe in the Bible. They don't believe it's truth. So there's a huge distinctive right there.
Not to mention the fact that Jerry looks at it from a generational point of view, and he's written a book on it, and I've written a book on it. And I guess we're the only two that write books on those kinds of things. But he's been right so many times. He's predicted a lot of things. So we'll come back and talk about that. We need to take a break, though, and we have people ready to take your phone calls. So please give us a call right now as we go to a break. You won't miss any of the content. It won't take long at all. 800-347-5151. We need to hear from some of you in the state of Texas, although, of course, we've heard from some of you in other parts of the country as well. 1-800-347-5151. If you're near a computer, go to pointofview.net. Click on that button that says Give, and we will be back with some content right after this.
Welcome to the First Liberty Briefing. I'm Jeremy Dice. The U.S. Department of Justice recently announced that it will update the U.S. Attorney's Manual, creating a new section giving special attention to religious liberty. Updates to such a manual are sometimes viewed as routine, but they tend to reflect the values and priorities of the Department of Justice and function as a sort of roadmap for the department's coming years. The updates announced in the new manual requires the nation's U.S. attorneys to not only identify a dedicated point of contact on litigation having to do with religious liberty, but also requires coordination of any such litigation directly with the central office in Washington, D.C. In other words, Attorney General Sessions is announcing that his office will be very hands-on in lawsuits involving our first freedom. When the Department of Justice announced the updated U.S. Attorney's Manual, then Associate Attorney General Rachel Brand explained, quote, "Religious liberty is an inalienable right protected by the Constitution, and defending it is one of the most important things we do at the Department of Justice." Clearly, the days of abandoning protections in the law for religious liberty, including bipartisan laws like the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, may be a thing of the past. The critical leadership of the Attorney General and his staff to protect religious liberty for all Americans will do much to strengthen all of our core freedoms. To learn how First Liberty is protecting religious liberty for all Americans, visit firstliberty.org.
Hi, I'm Kelly Shackelford, President and Chief Counsel of First Liberty Institute. You can protect your religious freedom by going to firstliberty.org to download your free Religious Liberty Protection Kit. Our attorneys created kits for churches, ministries, Christian schools, military members, students, and teachers, and the workplace. Get your Religious Liberty Protection Kit at firstliberty.org. That's firstliberty.org.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now. Michael Youssef.
I tell you, I always look forward to being with you, Kerby. You truly give me a good intellectual challenge. In any way that you are gifted, or God called you to do, as long as you are involved in some way, and that is the plea I have with your listeners, Kerby, that please do not just listen to a program like this and then go, so that was an interesting thing. No, I want to challenge you. Get involved. Find out what Kerby Anderson is doing. Find out what other ministries are doing. Get involved, because it is only when the believers really take their faith seriously, that can we turn the world upside down. I believe that with all my heart.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
You know Michael Yosef, and we've really enjoyed having him on the program at different times, sometimes in studio and that one by phone. But again, he's a great friend of the ministry as well.
He has a great program. He's a great preacher, and it's good stuff. It really is. And to have him support us that way is just awesome.
Yes. Let's, if we can, talk about another aspect of Point of View. People oftentimes think of Point of View as a current issues program, and certainly that is. We tell you how to think about issues and how to articulate a biblical worldview. But Jerry Tuma, let me come to you for just a minute, because the other part of that is we also talk about how to know how to defend a biblical worldview, and that's why we've had Josh McDowell on, and Sean McDowell, and Jay Warner Wallace. This week we're going to have Lee Strobel in studio and all sorts of other individuals. But I know that because of some of the things we've promoted here on Point of View, including the Mind Games Conference, you have, what is it, grandson?
Grandson and granddaughter both attended that.
Yeah, and talk about that, because, hey, he's actually gotten very involved in doing this whole area of apologetics and defending the Christian faith.
He has, and, he's turned on about it, and he wins intellectual debates with his friends who are atheists all the time, and he just wipes the floor with them, and he kind of likes it because, they can't defend anything. They have their belief system, but they can't tell you why. Yeah, he attended, my granddaughter and grandson both attended the Mind Games, seminar, which I guess, what's that, about 2-week program for people that are getting ready to go into college. And I asked him just recently, and of course that's been 3 or 4 years ago, I guess. I asked him recently, I said, what's the difference? How did you get to where you are now in terms of your beliefs and being able to articulate it? And of course he's all over, stuff on the web and sending stuff, conservative articles and Christian belief stuff. He said, well, it was when I went to the Mind Games. He said that allowed me to take what I already believed in terms of my faith, if you want to call it that, but now crystallize it and put a structure around it so I know here's why I believe what I believe. Here's what all these other worldviews are all about and why you can debunk them and how easy it is to debunk them in many ways. And he just said that was the turning point of his life in his faith in terms of being able to defend Christianity and his impact of what it's going to have in his life and in the future, I think, in whatever leadership capacity God's calling him into.
Well, Brad, that's another reason why to give, and also really illustrates what happens when you give to Point of View, because a lot of people say,
right,
I know what I believe, but I don't know how to defend it. Right. And in this world, you better know how to defend your Christian faith.
And we hear from listeners all the time, Kerby, that's exactly what they say one way or another, but it comes down to where they say, I don't know who to believe anymore. I don't know what to believe anymore because I've got all this stuff coming at me from every different direction. I mean, since the advent of the internet, think about the multiplication of information is just astronomical.
Yes.
But one thing, we are consistent here. Jerry talked about it earlier, and that's truth with a capital T.
Yeah.
And there is only one truth. And we will stand for that, and we will oppose the untruth.
Yes. Well, again, we live in this post-truth society, and especially since we're broadcasting right now in a Dallas station, I thought some people might like to hear from a Dallas pastor, Robert Jeffress.
The program for me as a young teenager and then as a seminary student and young minister really encouraged me to study God's Word, to study science, to study every aspect of our existence so that I could be ready to give a clear answer to anyone who was to ask me for the hope that is within me. I think the Point of View is a great augmentation to the ministry of the local church. A Point of View helps, I know, the people in my church be equipped with these truths and answers that they need to combat the secularism of our day. I can say as a pastor that I believe in the primacy of the local church, but once a week on Sunday is not enough for people to be equipped with these eternal truths that come from God's Word. I count Point of View as an important partner with me in my ministry in the local church in equipping the saints for the work of service.
Again, back to the Truth Team 360, and we have in studio with us Brad Fisk as well as Jerry Tuma. Jerry, we're going to probably talk a little bit more with you in the second hour about this, but just to mention that we've posted an article by you about tariffs and the stock market. And when people say, well, how do you think about tariffs? Well, there's good news, bad news. We had one guest on recently talking about because of the threat of tariffs, that caused South Korea to say, wait a minute, we actually need American markets more than they need us, so we better actually negotiate some new changes, which they have. So that's been good news. when you deal with China, they're seeming like they're playing hardball. So kind of think through this whole issue.
I think they are. I think part of it is they can't afford to lose face in the side of the world. That's a big chunk of why. But the reality is, I think at the end of the day, I'll be surprised if they don't come around some because, again, they need us more than we need them.
Right.
We do a lot of our manufacturing of a lot of our products in China, but that's increasingly gone to lower cost places, lower than China, like Vietnam and Laos and places like that. But the issue is the U.S. is still the big game in town globally, economically. So everybody needs us more than we need them. Our exports are only, maybe 5-6%, 10% tops of our whole U.S. economy. China is very dependent on us. So the fact of the matter, though, is I think that they're realizing, okay, some of the things we've asked corporations from America to do in the past, like pirating our software, turning over all of your intellectual property to us in order to coexist, I think they realize that's probably not fair play, if you want to say that. So I'm, in general, I think free trade is the best way to go. But if you allow things to get out of hand, you get two basketball teams and one of them plays with a hand tied behind their back, that's not fair. So we talked about this, matter of fact, in our book From Boom to Bust and Beyond, Kerby, we talked about globalization and how it would be beneficial to everybody in that book. But at the same time, we needed fair trade. We needed to make sure everybody's playing on the same level playing field. And if you get people that are protecting their own interests, like China has been in particular, against our interests, then that doesn't work. And that puts people out of work over here. So bottom line is it's got to be fair for both sides, and I think that's the primary thing Trump's really trying to do.
One of the things that we do, Brad, is to actually make available to all of our listeners who are donate at any level, and especially we're looking at those at the $1 a day and Anniversary Club and Century Club, but they will receive the Outlook magazine.
That's
and
right.
The most recent one is on trade. Now you might say, well, that sounds pretty boring. Well, one of them uses the illustration of gummy bears to illustrate trade. So you sometimes say, okay, Jerry knows a lot about economics. How do we take some of his concepts and put them in an easy to understand way? And Jerry is really good at that, which is why we bring him onto the program here, because we all have to deal with the financial world around us. And if we aren't applying biblical principles, we're going to be violating those biblical principles and we're going to suffer for them.
That's true. And again, it just goes back to what is really the basis of our life. It's really not money. That's not why God left us here after we became a Christian. It's about salvation. It's about the gospel message. And let me say that even through a talk program like this, we still talk about salvation. We still talk about the miracle of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And when you give at 1-800-347-5151, you are helping us to propagate the gospel of Jesus Christ. There's a great reason to give.
That is a great reason. And again, you can go to pointofview.net, or as we go to a break here, now is a perfect time for you to call and get through 800-347-5151. We're going to keep Jerry Tuma with us, and then a little bit later talk with Foster Freeze, Mike Farris in the next hour as well. So we've got all sorts of things to cover, but we need to hear from you right now. 5 individuals.
That's right.
Right now, we're looking for 5 individuals in the Dallas area. 800-347-5151. We'll continue our conversation right after this.
Come on, Dallas, let's go.
Does point of view make any difference? Dr. Eric Walsh would say it does. Dr. Walsh was fired as district health director for the state of Georgia, not because of anything he did or failed to do on the job, but because of sermons he preached in his local church. What does that have to do with point of view? Jeremy Dice of First Liberty represented Dr. Walsh, and the state of Georgia ended up paying a large settlement for their religious discrimination. And Jeremy Dice became an attorney specializing in defending religious liberty, greatly because of what he learned listening to Point of View Radio as a child. That is the kind of difference you make when you join the Truth Team. So many victories we've fought and prayed for appear to be within reach. Now is the time to press toward the goal. The future is now when you call 800-347-5151 or take a moment and visit pointofview.net/team. Together, we can finally achieve real and lasting change. 800-347-5151 and pointofview.net/team.
Point of View will continue after this.
I I just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have. You're just absolutely fantastic.
I recently started listening to Point of View, and I really found it interesting because of the different subjects you cover. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate everything that you do in keeping us informed.
Thank you, Kerby, for everything that you have been doing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, advocating for the Word of God. Thank you so much.
Point of View, I think, is absolutely necessary because it's a Christian perspective, a biblical worldview perspective, and receive very current, up-to-date information about what is really going on, week to week in our culture, which is changing so rapidly, and yet it's morally sliding backwards.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for joining me. This is going to be a great week of broadcasting, because we're going to be looking at a variety of different issues that I think you're going to appreciate. We have 3 different guests, 2 in studio, 1 by phone in the next 2 hours. And this is part of what we call our Truth Team Week, Truth Team 360. And in studio with me, a good friend, Brad Fisk, as we talk about the importance of you supporting this ministry.
It is indeed. It's Truth Team time, and for those of you that have been around for a while know what that means. We are a listener-supported program that cannot do what we do until we hear from you financially and standing with us strong. And you can do that by joining the Truth Team at any giving level as the Lord leads, but we're asking everybody to do their part at 1-800-347-5151.
If you are new to the broadcast, we're going to be talking about the fact that you can support at different levels. But one of the reasons we call it Truth Team 360 is, first of all, we give you a 360 view. We cover your back, and we've got your back. But more importantly, 360 fits very well to one of the things that we suggest so often, and that is for as little as $1 a day, $30 a month, $360 a year, you can be part of the Truth Team. And if you are one of those individuals, we actually have a number of thank you gifts, but one of those is a Bible stick.
That's
and
right.
Brad, you might talk about that, because it's such a great resource available only through Point of View.
That's correct. This is not a retail product, but it's an actual MP3 player that comes with headphones, and you can listen to the Word of God, to the New Testament ESV version, dramatized sound effects, and it's word for word, the ESV version of the New Testament, and that is available to you as a thank you gift. And it fits in the palm of your hand, so it fits in a shirt pocket or a purse. But you can take the Word of God with you, the audio version of the Word of God, anywhere you go with this Bible stick. That's yours as a thank you gift at $30 a month or more, and you get that by getting a hold of us at 1-800-347-5151.
Brad, one of the things we've also found is some people like to give a little bit more. We have what we call the Anniversary Club, because Point of View has been on for more than 45 years.
That's right.
So for $45 a month, we add to that these little booklets. And you can see some of the ones I have in my hand: Sharia law, political culture, making your vote count, homosexual theology, privacy and surveillance, as well as the Second Amendment and capitalism and socialism, a variety of others. And so for $45 a month, you receive the Bible stick as well as those booklets. Of course, all of you will receive the Outlook magazine. And at the Century Club level, we add something in addition to that.
We do. Echo Dot. You heard about those? That is the big new thing, I'll tell you right now. And that's available to you as a gift. Again, a thank you gift at $100 a month or more, along with the other items. But an Echo Dot is an incredible tool that can be used actually to listen to Point of View on.
And we certainly want to encourage you to give at any level that you think is appropriate. Of course, you could give a one-time gift, but we certainly are looking for those of you that join with us this week in the Truth Team. Give that number 800-347-5151. We also had some people giving online. You can simply go to our website, pointofview.net. And if you would like to leave a note or find out a little bit more, you can also go to our Facebook Live page and find a connection there as well. In studio with us, the first of 3 guests that we have today, Jerry Tuma. We have known each other literally for decades. Certified financial planner, president and founder of Cornerstone Financial Services. And Jerry, you've been around Point of View for a while. I think you could probably speak to the impact that Point of View has had not only in your life, but the life of your family and even in your own business, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember doing a speech in Oklahoma City once, and the radio guy came up, and we started talking. He goes, yeah, listen to Marla Maddox, listen to this for decades, And so the testimony you had about Michelle Bachmann earlier was amazing. A 19-year-old, she started listening, and look at the impact that she's had. And by the way, I'm not sure her impact is over, even though she's not serving in the, in the House anymore for Minnesota. She's doing a lot of work with Jim Garlow in terms of stuff for the UN, things that could affect our future there. So the issue is that you've got to be truth. I think of this ministry almost like a laser light beam. Laser may not be very big necessarily, but you can cut steel with that thing. And, what we're doing here is impacting thousands and millions of lives, actually hundreds of thousands of lives, if people take it to heart. It's kind of, again, we talked about earlier, the sowing and the reaping process. What we're doing is throwing out the Word of God, but as it applies to all sectors of society, we're so brainwashed by the socialism, the humanism, if you're familiar with that term, all the outlooks of the world that have nothing to do with the Bible. Truth Week is a good thing. The Truth Team is the issue, because everything that does work in the long run starts with a capital T, and that's truth. So everybody doesn't have their own truth. There's not multiple varieties of the truth. If I drop my pen in this studio right now, it's not going to go up. It's not going to go float into outer space like if we were in a space capsule or something like that. It's going to go straight down. And what we've got to do as believers is be what God's called us to be, what Jesus said, salt and light to our society. What does that mean? You got to be armed. You got to understand this stuff. You got to go, wait a minute. The Bible is not wrong. It's not an old book of fables and fairy tales or kind of like the Greek gods. It's basically truth that God's given us on how to work our lives. And America has gotten off of that stream. We've taken a left turn, and I do mean left, far left turn on our education systems and the media. It's our job to be that salt and that light, because you will impact, and you'd be surprised at how you can impact someone's life. You plant those seeds. It may be years in some cases before the Holy Spirit really works in that person's life, but you cannot underestimate how important this whole thing is. So what we encourage you to do here is become a part of this ministry by calling 800-347-5151, 1-800-347-5151. Be part of that seed planting group, if you want to think of it that way, because the culture war, we're right in the middle of it. Donald Trump's a good example of a lot of things that are changing, and I have a lot of hope for America's future. Again, if we'll get involved, 800-347-5151.
Fred, we need to also maybe talk about why it would be important for somebody to support this ministry. I
That's
think
right.
We've heard some testimony here.
You know what? We've actually lined up a few listeners that we could hear from right now that will give us, they'll say it a lot better than I ever could.
Let's listen to what they have to say.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
And express my gratitude for the awesome work that you guys have done. I've been listening for about 6 months now, and it's just been something I can hardly miss. Thank you for giving me my daily dose of truth with a biblical worldview. I'd just like to encourage anyone listening that's inspired by Point of View to give what they can. I'm a California millennial and Christian, and I now can say I support Point of View.
I've been listening to Point of View regularly for the past year and a half, and I have to say it's been my favorite radio program.
But I'm going to double what I'm sending to you guys, because thanks to you, you're keeping this all up to speed.
I am just so thankful for you, Kerby, and for you continuing in this ministry, and for people whom God has lifted up in these last days. I just want to thank you and just ask that God would bless you.
Thank you, Kerby. I really appreciate your program. You cover a lot of issues that a lot of us think about, I'm sure.
I appreciate Point of View. You've been great and wonderful. A lot of information, and I really appreciate all your work you do.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
The future is now. And again, we certainly do encourage you to join with us. We're going to go to a break here, and this is a good time for you to call 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. We just mentioned a minute ago, former Representative Michelle Bachmann. When we come back, we're going to hear former Representative Alan West. I don't think God is finished with him either, and he was not able to join us, but he wanted to challenge you to give. But let's encourage you to call right now. 347-5151. We need to hear from you. Again, you can give us a call or also go online at pointofview.net.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
You may have noticed that sometimes people who talk about the need to practice civility need to take their own advice. In the past, this has often been a problem for progressives. They talk about civility, but often engage in name-calling and vilifying others. Their dialogue is anything but civil. Even the previous president was sometimes guilty of saying one thing and doing another. But lately, it has been conservatives who have been guilty of violating the proposed rules for civil dialogue. What brought this on has been the strident statements by some of the students who survived the school shooting in Parkland. Let's just look at the bashing and sliming of David Hogg. He has been called a high school bully. Some erroneously speculated that he may not have been at the school the day of the shooting, and one commentator made fun of him because he was rejected by certain colleges. By the way, these examples are from what you might call mainstream conservative commentators. Of course, there have always been people and groups on the fringe who engage in what has been called conspiracy mongering. Those groups spread false rumors about David Hogg giving a Nazi salute. There have been the false story about the Parkland students tearing up a constitution. These stories are so extreme they hardly deserve a response. But the other examples I gave came from people who are respected in the conservative world and speak at conferences and conventions. The real test of civility is how you respond to someone who does not treat you in a civil manner. I think we all realize that high school students are going to say some things that are not well informed. Students who have been through a traumatic event like a school shooting are going to be saying things with anger and emotion. The test of civility is not to respond in kind. Romans 12:21 reminds us, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. That is an important principle to follow in the midst of these contentious debates. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For more information about issues covered on Viewpoints, visit pointofview.net. Pointofview.net. Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Hi, everybody. This is Gary Bauer with American Values in Washington, D.C. You know, I've been involved in big battles in Washington for many, many years, and in those battles, time and time again, it's been Point of View Radio and Kerby Anderson who's provided me with a platform to sound the alarm. It doesn't matter whether the battle was over the sanctity of human life or preserving religious liberty or defending marriage. Kerby Anderson and Point of View have always been there standing strong. That's why today I'm asking you to join me in giving the most generous contribution you can to Point of View Radio. You know, Point of View and Kerby don't get big subsidies from Washington, D.C. like some liberals do. They depend on generous donors like you who believe in family, faith, and freedom. So right now, while you're thinking about it, make the most generous contribution you can to Point of View Radio and Kerby Anderson, and stay tuned to Point of View. I'll be coming up soon to talk with you on some issues from Washington, D.C.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Kind words from Gary Bauer, who will be with us tomorrow, but wanted to say something before he joined with us on Tuesday. And if you are just joining us right now, Truth Team 360, Truth Team Week is taking place. Have in studio with us Brad Fisk and Jerry Tuma. In just a few minutes, we'll have in studio with us Foster Free. So just a lot to cover. But one of the things that we want you to realize is how we are so dependent upon your financial gifts to educate individuals and to motivate individuals. And we certainly have spent some time talking about some of those individuals that have decided to run for office, like Michelle Bachmann. Let's for just a minute listen to what Alan West had to say. He wanted to be with us, but he knew he was out this week. A former member of Congress, but an individual that also was the head for many years of the National Center for Policy Analysis. And Alan West wanted you to hear this.
Hey, greetings, everyone. It's Lieutenant Colonel retired Alan West, former member of the 112th Congress. I just want to take a few moments to tell you why it's so important that you support Kerby and what he's doing here with Point of View Ministries and all the great people they have here on this team. This is truly an intersection of the culture. It is truly a place where you can have that open discussion about the politics, your faith, and all the things that are affecting our country with the current issues. But it is always from a biblical perspective. And I think that's what makes Point of View Ministries, Point of View Radio, and what Kerby brings in his analysis and his assessment so very important. When I look at what is happening in the United States of America right now, it is truly not about a political party discussion. It is an ideological discussion. And Christians need to understand that we have a responsibility in this constitutional republic to stand for righteous governance and righteous government. And it's so important that we come to realize that separation of church and state cannot continue to mean separation of our Judeo-Christian faith heritage from the foundational fabric of the United States of America. But it has to mean that we should not be allowing government to dictate to us, to relegate our very first of our First Amendment rights, which is the freedom of religion and the free exercise thereof, subjugated to the whims and the desires of a secular government. So it's so important that we do render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. It's so important that, as it says in 1 Peter, that we do respect the government. We do respect and honor the king with a little k. But we also need to make sure that that person that has been ordained by our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, by our God, who gives us those inalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, respects our faith, respects our belief, and we have that governance. We have that system of laws and the rule of law that respects the foundation of these great United States of America, which is the Judeo-Christian faith heritage and the Constitution. So please continue to support Point of View Ministries, Point of View Radio. Continue to keep Kerby busy. And so that sometimes maybe when Kerby is really busy, he has to leave, they'll invite me in and let me host the show every now and then. But don't tell them, because then maybe they won't allow me to host it as much as maybe they want me to. But still, what a great ministry, what a great man, what a great team that you have here at Point of View Ministries and Point of View Radio. So make sure that you support them.
I always enjoyed having Alan West sit in this chair here, as well as Louis Gohmert and a variety of other individuals. Of course, Penna Dexter has been doing that for years, and all sorts of other individuals. So just some other admonition from Alan West, just reminding us of the importance of point of view. And I might just say, Brad, Alan West is not twiddling his thumb saying, you know, what am I going to do with my life today? He is a very busy individual. So for him to come in, sit in this studio here, and actually leave that comment, I think shows how he believes that this is important. And every time he's ever been in studio with us, as he leaves, he says, okay, here's my credit card. How do I give to this ministry? Yeah. So he's not asking you to do something he hasn't done. Mm-hmm. He's been a very faithful supporter to Point of View.
You know, and he reminded me, I was listening to him, and I was thinking of, you shall know them by the friends they keep. You shall know them by the friends they have. And start making a list of Point of View friends. That's a really long list. And there's a reason. Because there's no other voice just like Point of View's voice. And really, when you're giving, you're allowing us to continue to propagate that voice into the culture in this world war we're really in of cultures. 1-800-347-5151. You want to be a world changer? You want to make a difference for eternity? Then let's hear from you with your very best gift. 1-800-347-5151. That's 1-800-347-5151. 5151. We have 9 lines available. Let's get every single phone line lit up right now. You can also give at pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. Give safely and securely online.
Jerry Tuma, we've talked about this intellectual battle, and you co-authored a book with Tim LaHaye. Of course, he wrote Battle for the Mind, and you certainly have written about this. We are in a pitched battle right now between two ideologies, a humanistic, secular kind of mindset and a Judeo-Christian mindset, and it's sort of a little bit of a coin flip right now, which one's going to win, and that's why we need to really encourage people to be part of the battle.
Yeah, if you think of it like a tug of war, you want to get bigger guys on our side, essentially. But yeah, I heard Newt Gingrich recently say, and I think he said it many times, we're in a civil war. It's just not a shooting civil war, at least not yet. But the issue is, again, truth ultimately wins out. One of the reasons that I did an interview with a guy once when the Soviet Union fell, if you remember that, a few years ago, and he made a comment that just kind of rocked my boat, and he said, well, the issue is real simple. It was founded on precepts that were false, and anything that's founded on something false is ultimately going to fail. And that's what we're seeing here right now, and it's beginning to show the fruit. If you look at, again, we talk about this in our book, From Boom to Bust and Beyond, the red state versus blue state dichotomy. So Hillary makes this big speech in India, of course, talking about all this deplorable conservatives and stuff like that. But basically, she sort of lied in what she said. Okay, 2/3 of the GDP or the economy is from the states or the counties that she won. Well, that's somewhat true, but that's kind of old wealth, if you will, old thinking. If you look at those states and the counties that she talked about, net migration outflow is always happening. I think the most recent up in New York, Cuomo's up there trying to out de Blasio now, so he's had to go farther left, and he took a swing to the conservative middle for a little while, and now they're seeing outflow from every single county except for two in New York. Why? Because the liberals have one mindset: increase taxes, increase regulation. All we know, the business people are evil people, so we have to control them and keep them from destroying the world. And unfortunately, there's a little bit of truth in that. Wall Street handled that during the debacle. But the bottom line is more taxes, more regulation, and people are getting fed up. Housing prices go too high. They can't afford to live there anymore. So people are moving out and moving to places like Texas and other places like that. So the dichotomy between, again, the false lies of the humanistic secular mindset and the truth and the people that stand for truth and biblical values as it applies to government and the economy, in the end of the day, we have the evidence we're winning that battle, just not in terms of politically necessarily. It is a battle extraordinary on the political side, but in terms of the economics, we're starting to win as people are realizing, hey, these old policies, they don't work anymore.
One of the things we want to encourage people to do, Brad, is to recognize that at all sorts of different levels, they can actually support this ministry.
That's right. There's the $1 a day level. The Bible stick is yours as a welcome gift. And at the $45 level, we add on the booklets. These are monthly booklets that are really popular. And you get those for free as a gift. And then at the $100 Century level, it's the Echo Dot is added to the gift package. Those are just little welcome gifts to encourage you to give and to join Truth Team 360. 1-800-347-5151. 1-800-347-5151. I'm looking in the phone room, and I've got at least 4 people with open lines right now. 1-800-347-5151.
Jerry, I want to thank you for joining us. In just a few minutes, we're going to have Foster Freeze in here. Those of you watching online, this gives you an idea of what these booklets are like, and everything from Sharia law to homosexual theology and the latest one on the Second Amendment. That's why we need to hear from you, and you can join at the $30 a month level, $45 a month level, or the $100 a month level. 1-800-347-5151. Let's get 5 calls at least during this break.
Let's do it.
Pointofview.net or 1-800-347-5151.
For years, we've been working for change in the future, voting for candidates who will appoint good justices, fighting to end abortion and protect religious liberty. The opportunity to finally achieve the change we've been working for is now. We've got an apparently solid justice for the Supreme Court, and strong rumors another opening may be imminent, a chance to shift the court from illegitimate judicial activist lawmaking to constitutional faithfulness for decades to come. There is renewed support for freedom of conscience and religion, an administration committed to upholding the law. No, not perfect, sometimes maddening, but arguably better than we've seen in any of our lifetimes. And the future is now. It's time for informed citizens, informed Christian disciples to keep the pressure on, to be faithful members of the Point of View Truth Team. Seize this moment. Make an important move. Call 800-347-5151 or visit pointofview.net/team. Together, we can finally achieve real and lasting change. 800-347-5151 and pointofview.net/team. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
In the midst of Truth Team 360, and we have in studio with us Foster Freeze. We'll give him a formal introduction in just a minute. Of course, Brad Fisk with us this week as we really are focusing on the support of Point of View. And Brad, you have some responses.
Yeah, I just want to say a real quick one here. We have several, but Alton from South Carolina, thank you. Joining the Truth Team with your gift, and thank you so much for doing that from Georgia. And so we're grateful for you standing with us. It's your turn to give us a call and be a part of what's going on here financially, because you're going to hear stuff here you're going to hear nowhere else in the entire world, right here on Point of View. 1-800-347-5151. It's Truth Team Week. 1-800-347-5151 will get you hooked up to us, and you can make your very best gift there. And you can also do it online at pointofview.net.
And I might just mention, as I've held up before here, that when you give, especially at the $45 a month level, you receive these booklets on everything from Sharia law to privacy to the Second Amendment and all sorts of other things. Those are thank you gifts that we'll send to you. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. But we are privileged to have in studio with us Foster Freeze. You've heard him many times before. We've talked about raising money for water. We've talked about various political campaigns. We've talked about civility. Matter of fact, my commentary today is on practice civility, it just turns out. But we've posted this article about Rachel's Challenge. Now, I remember a number of years ago when I used to go to these Worldview weekends, we had an individual by the name of Daryl Scott showing up, talking about his daughter, who was the first girl killed at Columbine, and he was beginning Rachel's Challenge. Well, now Foster Freeze has said, I'll match your donations up to $2.5 million for this. And so, Foster, it is always great to talk to you by phone. Great to have you in studio with us.
Well, I'm just so excited about what Point of View has done to impact our country over the years. I mean, I've met people who decide, hey, I listen to Point of View, and I've been compelled, I'm going to start a church, or I'm going to start a school. And I think Michelle Bachmann was probably influenced to run for office. So the impact that you've had on lives, it's going to be hard to ever assess that. So I congratulate you on that.
Well, thank you. And talk about this for just a minute, because certainly one of the issues we talk about is, of course, the Second Amendment. And we've talked about these school shootings. And even my commentary tomorrow points out that if you look at these shooters, about 75% of them since Columbine have come from broken families. Matter of fact, really very difficult situations. And you add to this issues like some of the toxic video games, violent video games, some of the drugs some of them are on, the bullying. And we can talk all day till we're blue in the face about blaming the NRA, blaming guns, blaming the FBI. But I think your approach and the approach of Daryl Scott is a better one. Let's try to not have shooters. And
yeah, that makes sense.
What a concept here.
Yeah.
So talk about that. How did you and Daryl get together?
Well, I just heard Daryl's story a while back, and we're instantly moved, as anybody is. Once you hear the story, you can't say, hey, how can you not get behind this? And it's just the whole idea of creating a chain reaction of kindness. Well, who can oppose that? Now, the people are working for gun control and more background checks. They have opportunity to do that, but we think it's more important to how do you isolate who are these Nicholas Cruz type guys?
Right.
And secondly, once you isolate them, how do you surround them with vendors? Kerb, you take them fishing on Friday. Brad, you take them to a ball game, and I'll take them for pizza. Mm-hmm. And we could turn a lot of these potential shooters back, because most of them were fatherless or broken homes, as you said. And so how do we solve that? I'm intrigued, however, with the Parkland shooting. If we didn't learn anything, we learned the ineffectiveness of government to solve the problem.
I guess so.
And it's sort of tragic. You see how much money was spent on this march. The government has to do something. Government has to do something. My heavens, why haven't we learned the ineffectiveness? And we as people have to do it. And Kay James, the new president of the Heritage Foundation, had a great comment last week as I visited with her in Washington, D.C., and she said, this term first responder, that's kind of a misnomer, because if you're a single mom with two little kids in your apartment and you hear a criminal breaking through your door, and you are the first responder. and the second responders are there pretty much to pick up the bodies, unsadly enough.
Yeah.
So each of us have to think about how can we be more effective responders. And secondly, how important it is that people realize 30% of gun purchases are women.
Right.
I just happened to had dinner about a week ago with Wayne LaPierre, and I think it's sad to see how people are so lacking civility in terms of they're vilifying him. Like, I think someone said NRA has blood on his hands. Now, how? Why is that a civil comment? It's better just to disagree and say, this is my point of view. Joe Biden, I believe, was the architect of the school gun-free zones for schools. Well, if that's such a great idea, the way we keep our kids free and have a gun-free zone, maybe we should protect our politicians. So the District of Columbia should have all the politicians who have guards give up their guns. And see if that doesn't tip off a little hypocrisy. Maybe we can have Steve Scalise give the first testimony as to why that might not be a good idea. Then I recently met with a football player who I won't mention his name or his team, but we flew purposely to say, tell us, we want to listen to you. Why did you take a knee?
Yes.
And let us know what your beef is. And his first thing was gun control. Well, I bet you if you go to Kaepernick or other people, they all have different reasons, and nobody really I'm sure they don't hate America or hate the flag, but they figure that's the way we can get attention. In fact, this guy said to me, look, we wouldn't be having dinner tonight if Kaepernick hadn't made that thing. This is what precipitated my going down to this city to listen. So I believe we just have to think about how do we realize that if someone's going to hurt somebody, some people in Charlottesville took a truck. Yeah. Unsuspecting the bombers in Boston. They had
or even right here in Texas. Yeah,
and there's stabbings with knives. In fact, you maybe saw that New York City London surpassed New York City with the most murders in February, March. Those with knives.
Mostly with knives.
So we can do all we want to do about trying to close off the weapons. And then there's the issue of more background checks. How much more did they want to know about Nicholas Cruz? They had a packet this thick about him, and adding one more page of a background check, and then the San Bernardino shooter, he got someone else to buy the gun for him. So I just think the key, as you point out, is things like Rachel's Challenge, where we change the hearts and minds of these kids, which impacts them their whole lives, not just while they're in school.
One of the things, Brad, that we do is I have my daily commentary, and my commentary comes out on April 10th, in which psychologist Peter Langman said that it isn't just that 75% of those school shooters came from broken homes, but he said they came from incredibly broken homes, not just divorce and separation, but infidelity, substance abuse, criminal behavior, domestic violence, and child abuse. A direct quote from him, illustrating again that you can talk about the guns, even you could get rid of them all. You had all these stabbings in London just this last week. We just down the road from us here had a young boy that was using bombs and never had touched a gun, but he was killing people. So if we can talk to we're blue in the face about Second Amendment and about NRA and about guns, how about we focus on the kids? And that's where I think this whole program that is, again, got to give credit to Daryl Scott. He could have just said, I'm just so sad I lost my daughter. But instead, I remember when he was just getting started, we used to do some of these Worldview weekends with him. And I'm glad to see that he's so successful in terms of focusing on the real issue. Yeah. Let's deal with the kids, right?
Exactly. And a lot of the mentoring programs are coming from a mom who says, I think it's three little boys, and I have to work all day. Hey, Kerby, would you be a mentor for them? But I think we have to go a step further and isolate who are the real problem people. There's nobody coming forward and say, hey, my kid needs a mentor. We have to, number one, isolate, identify those, and very intentionally. And then secondly, we have to surround them with the kind of support and affirmation and make them feel that they have value, which what Rachel Challenge does.
In our few remaining moments in this break, could you give us one reason why our friends ought to call and donate to give to Point of View? What's one reason it comes to mind?
Well, I think because Point of View highlights so many of these different efforts. Now, Rachel Challenge is not a ministry. It's a secular program which has allowed them to go into 20,000 schools. So I think Point of View, all the opportunity for me to be here today and talk about return to civility and the lives that have been changed, why people took a whole new career path because Point of View impacted them. And certainly I absolutely love you guys and wish you a lot of good success.
Thank you. 800-347-5151. That's the number for you to call. Join the Truth Team, won't you? And we're talking about truth with a capital T, biblical truth with a biblical worldview every single day for over 45 years. 1-800-347-5151. That's toll free 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151, and you can give at pointofview.net.
Sometimes we ask the question, what would happen if you did not give to Point of View? Well, you might not have had a chance to hear from Foster Freeze. Also, you might say, well, I'd like to read a little bit more about it. Well, we post the article from USA Today. So then I'm encouraging you to read the article, click that share button, and put it on your Facebook page or Twitter feed, or send it to someone else. Tell them about that. When we come back, we might also mention some of you in the Dallas area. If you'd like to attend a dinner tonight, that's a possibility as well. But we need to take a break, so we want you to call now. This is a perfect time to call. You won't miss anything. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, or pointofview.net. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the First Liberty Briefing. I'm Jeremy Dice. The U.S. Department of Justice recently announced that it will update the U.S. Attorney's Manual, creating a new section giving special attention to religious liberty. Updates to such a manual are sometimes viewed as routine, but they tend to reflect the values and priorities of the Department of Justice and function as a sort of roadmap for the department's coming years. The updates announced in the new manual requires the nation's U.S. attorneys to not only identify a dedicated point of contact on litigation having to do with religious liberty, but also requires coordination of any such litigation directly with the central office in Washington, D.C. In other words, Attorney General Sessions is announcing that his office will be very hands-on in lawsuits involving our first freedom. When the Department of Justice announced the updated U.S. Attorney's Manual, then Associate Attorney General Rachel Brand explained, quote, "Religious liberty is an inalienable right protected by the Constitution, and defending it is one of the most important things we do at the Department of Justice." Clearly, the days of abandoning protections in the law for religious liberty, including bipartisan laws like the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, may be a thing of the past. The critical leadership of the Attorney General and his staff to protect religious liberty for all Americans will do much to strengthen all of our core freedoms. To learn how First Liberty is protecting religious liberty for all Americans, visit firstliberty.org.
Hi, I'm Kelly Shackelford, President and Chief Counsel of First Liberty Institute. You can protect your religious freedom by going to firstliberty.org to download your free Religious Liberty Protection Kit. Our attorneys created kits for churches, ministries, Christian schools, military members, students, and teachers, and the workplace. Get your Religious Liberty Protection Kit at firstliberty.org. That's firstliberty.org.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now. Dr. Sean McDowell.
We clearly live in difficult times, especially for Christians. Sometimes it feels like the culture is just turning against us quickly. We need to speak up with compassion, but we need to speak up with truth in the way that Jesus did. That's one reason why I'm a big fan of Point of View, is they're dealing with cutting-edge, controversial subjects that the church sometimes doesn't want to deal with. But they do their homework, they do it informed, they also do it in a way that's practical so we understand the issues but know what we can do about them. Ministries like Point of View can only survive with the help of listeners. One of the reasons I think Point of View is so valuable is because they just deal with the cutting issues of the day in a manner that's informed, in a manner that's gracious, and in a manner that's making a difference. Point of View is standing up for truth, and they need your help.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Sean McDowell was on with us recently. As a matter of fact, his father, Josh McDowell, was on last week. And so not only do we help you articulate biblical points of view, but also know how to defend them. And so we spend time talking about apologetics, but all sorts of other contemporary issues. Brad Fisk in studio with me, and we have Foster Freeze with us for a few more minutes. Again, one of the longest surviving successful growth stock pickers, but now a philanthropist. And one of the things it says, the personal challenges inspired Foster Freeze to invite Jesus Christ to become his chairman of the board. And you heard him say that off air, didn't you?
Yes, he did. We chatted there during the break, and we're so excited to have you here in the studio. But more important is that we are addressing in a variety of ways the culture war that's going on here today. You're even doing that with your event tonight.
Well, the event tonight is to help Rachel Challenge expand their activities, and particularly to be able to plant somebody in Dallas or in Detroit or Phoenix so they can be there permanently rather than having to travel back and forth, to develop the donor base and start little groups of people that are supportive of what they're doing. So we're having an event at 6 o'clock is reception time, and 6:30 we'll have dinner. And we may have 5, 6, 8 tickets left if you have some friends who might want to come. And Daryl Scott will tell his story. R.C. Slocum, the Aggie coach, is thinking about coming up from College Station. And there's a lot of really fun people who want to hear this story. And I just think it's such a life-changing story that everyone would benefit. We have some key educators coming. And so Rachel's Challenge will be, the story will be told tonight at 6 o'clock, 6:30 at the Adolphus Hotel, 19th floor.
Yeah. And I might just mention, we will be there, and my wife, you mentioned just a minute ago, will be here. But if you are somebody that says, well, I might like to attend that, no promises, but let me give you a different number. You can talk to Steve offline. We'll put your name on a list, and we'll see whether or not that works out. So that's 800-351-1212. That's the normal call-in line. It's not the one number we want you to call to donate to this ministry, but again, 800-351-1212. And I am just thrilled about the fact that you are getting behind Daryl Scott. What a wonderful individual who took an incredible tragedy in his life and turned it for good, and has had such a profound impact around the culture. Brad, that's just one more example of why I think people need to support Point of View, to find out about something that maybe they've never heard about before.
No one's talking about this. You're not going to read about this in the mainstream press. It is not going to happen. They're not going to show up. But that's not what we're looking for. Yep. We are looking for people of faith to step forward and say this story needs to be told a lot more.
And also, Sandy, his wife, deserves a lot of credit. They're co-founders of the opportunity to. And I was just at the Horatio Alger induction ceremonies when we brought in 12 new members, including Reba McEntire and some very wonderful people. And to be inducted, you have to come from humble backgrounds. And then we give scholarships to successful class presidents, valedictorians who come from abject adversity. I mean, these kids have gone through a lot. And so I mentioned to them, you have been designed now to have your ministry or your opportunity. You're a wounded healer. And so a lot of times we can take the bad stuff that happens to us that allows us to speak out to others where anyone else don't have that platform.
That's right.
And so you look at the adversity that hits us, and then to be able to build that into something positive is a real credit to Daryl and Sandy and to all those people who do the same thing.
You know, one of the things we've talked about with you, Foster, is the topic of my commentary today on practice civility, because I've noticed that sometimes people have said, well, we need civility, but then they don't act civil. And I used some examples from this last week. After the Parkland shooting, you've had people that in the past have said, well, we need to be civil. And then as soon as somebody crosses them, they don't act very civilly. And I've said before that one of the best tests of civility is how you respond to someone who does not treat you in a civil manner. Because Romans 12:21 says, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. And that was something else that I appreciate you doing, sitting down with somebody who probably politically, theologically, even culturally was an opposite of your life. But you sat down with that individual and even said, I'll buy coffee for some of you. You should sit down with one of those sworn enemies. And we need more of that civility, don't we?
One of the great things after the coffee challenge was someone sent me an email. I was at odds with a business guy that I had talked to in like 10, 12 years. And the challenge said, okay, I'm going to invite him for coffee. And lo and behold, we now are speaking to each other. We've got that behind us, and my life feels better. You know, the acid in the container does more harm to the container than the people it spills out on. And a lot of people have all this anger and resentment built up, and they need to let that go. I had an opportunity to listen to the woman who was held like 15 months by Somali terrorists, and they were not very nice to her. He kept her chained. And she said, I finally got to the point where I had to forgive them. Not for them, but for me.
For me. And again, just a great illustration, again, of some of the things we've talked about over the years with Foster Freeze, whether it's raising money for wells and water, whether it's civility, whether it's Rachel's Challenge, or whatever the next issue might be, or even some of these candidates. We're in the midst of an election year, so I suggest that probably individuals will want to know where these candidates stand. But the reason we do this is because we want to educate and encourage and empower our listeners to make a difference in the community.
Hey, the phones have slowed down just a bit in the phone room, so there's opportunity for you with a capital O to give financially to this ministry. It's Truth Team Week, day 1 of 5 days, and we're looking forward to all that's coming up. But in the meantime, here's the now. 1-800-347-5151. 1-800-347-5151. I have to believe there's at least 5 of you that want to pick up that Bible stick from Faith Comes by Hearing. That's a welcome gift at $1 a day or more. And you have the entire New Testament on this tiny little device called a Bible stick, and you can't buy it in the stores. It's word for word ESV version, dramatized with sound effects. Maybe not for you. How about that college student or a friend of yours, or that son or daughter who needs to get the Word of God in their ears, in their heart on a continuing basis? That gift is yours for a gift from you of $1 a day or more. 1-800-347-5151.
And since Point of View has been around for more than 45 years, we've also suggested an anniversary gift or club. And again, you will receive not only the Bible stick, but these little booklets. And here's just a few on Sharia law and politicized culture, making your vote count, homosexual theology, privacy and surveillance, Second Amendment. The next one coming out is on capitalism and socialism, and on and on and on. And again, that's for $45 a month. And then, of course, we also have a Century Club, $100 a month, which includes all of those plus the Amazon Echo Dot, because we find more and more people want to be able to just say, hey, Alexa, play Point of View, and they can listen to Point of View right there.
So a gift of any amount, monthly, a single gift, as the Lord leads. 1-800-347-5151. Let's get every single line that's manned picking up the telephone right now. Won't you please? 1-800-347-5151.
Foster Freeze, thank you for being here.
Well, from this point forward, anybody who calls in going forward from this moment, for the next 30 days, it's your 46th year you're into.
Going into
so
46.
I'll match everything that comes in after this moment, not in the past, from here until the end of the month of $46,000. So
$46,000.
Thank you so much.
Oh, nice. Oh, that is wonderful.
Wow.
We got a challenge on the table now. We're going to have to deal with that in the next hour.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. We got Michael Farris on, and we need to take a break. We'll be right back.
Does Point of View make any difference? Dr. Eric Walsh would say it does. Dr. Walsh was fired as district health director for the state of Georgia, not because of anything he did or failed to do on the job, but because of sermons he preached in his local church. What does that have to do with Point of View? Jeremy Dice of First Liberty represented Dr. Walsh, and the state of Georgia ended up paying a large settlement for their religious discrimination. And Jeremy Dice became an attorney specializing in defending religious liberty, greatly because of what he learned listening to Point of View radio as a child. That is the kind of difference you make when you join the Truth Team. So many victories we've fought and prayed for appear to be within reach. Now is the time to press toward the goal. The future is now when you call 800-347-5151 or take a moment and visit pointofview.net/team. Together, we can finally achieve real and lasting change. 800-347-5151 and pointofview.net/team.
Point of View will continue after this.
I just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have.
You're just absolutely fantastic.
I recently started listening to Point of View, and I really found it interesting because of the different subjects you cover. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate everything that you do in keeping us informed.
Thank you, Kerby, for everything that you have been doing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, advocating for the Word of God. Thank you so much.
Point of View, I think, is absolutely necessary because it's a Christian perspective, a biblical worldview perspective, and receive very current, up-to-date information about what is really going on, week to week in our culture, which is changing so rapidly, and yet it's morally sliding backwards.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View continues right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for joining us. Again, it is Truth Team Week, and we are encouraging you to support this ministry. And again, we'll give you some very good reasons for that. But one of the things that I ran across the other day is an individual that had been hearing about these sexually explicit magazines and books in the school library, went and checked them out and go, wait a minute, I can't believe that you're selling that. And it's just a reminder, as Brad Fisk is in studio with us today, to just understand that we live in a world where there's a lot of darkness and we need to light some lamps. And so your gift will help us to begin to light those lamps, and you will be the winner because you have helped us to actually turn the culture around in the midst of some very dark things before our children and our grandchildren.
And if you're just joining us, this is Truth Team Week, the fall edition 2018, and this is an opportunity when we get to come to you and you partner with us. I love this time of year. I do, because we get to connect with our friends and our listeners on a very different level than the rest of the year. We are here only because of your support in the past, bringing us to the point of today. All the faithful givers back in the Marlon Maddox days, through the Kerby Anderson early days, and up to right now, the present. So we're asking you to give, and give like you've never given before. 1-800-347-5151. Don't do it because we're asking you to. Do it because you care about this country. You care about the grandchildren that you have. What kind of a world are they going to inherit when they become adults and take over? It can be a very scary answer to a very common question. 1-800-347-5151. If you give for no other reason, give for the kids. Give for the children of this country, as to what's going to happen in the future.
What they're facing. And I might just mention, we didn't even talk about this, but this is a pledge, because you don't have to have all this money in hand.
That's
Although
correct.
we have had some individuals that say, $1 a day, $30 a month, I could probably write a check for $360. But some of you say, no, I would like to give on a monthly basis. We would appreciate that. We also have an anniversary club, which we've mentioned before, which is $45 a month. And you might say, well, I can get my hand around that. Or even at the Century Club level, I don't think we've had anybody yet to say, well, I could give $100 a month. You might say, there is no way I could write a check for $1,200. Right. But I might be able to write a check for $100 a month, or whatever amount you might choose. We certainly want to encourage you to do that. That's between you and the Lord. But again, the call only takes a few minutes, and you will, as you are joined with us by talking to one of these women that are right across the way from us here. We can see them through the window and are waiting for your phone call. Will only take you a little bit of time. No gift is too big. No gift is too small. We're looking for what? 100% participation.
We are indeed. And I'm very excited about the $1 a day gift, because you will receive a free gift from us called a Bible stick from Faith Comes by Hearing. You cannot buy this in stores. It's not sold retail. It fits in the palm of your hand. It's an actual player. It's not like a thumb drive. It's not that at all. It's actually a miniature little player that you plug in your ear, and you can listen to the Word of God, word for word, the ESV version, dramatized with music and sound effects, the entire New Testament on this little tiny device that's the size of a pack of gum. And it's your free gift from us to you when you become a Truth Team member at $1 a day or more. 1-800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, or at pointofview.net. You can give online at pointofview.net. viewpoints.net.
Well, again, if nothing else, I wanted to hear from one of our listeners. We don't take too many live listener calls, but I happen to know this individual because we went to Israel together. Sherry, thank you for calling in from South Carolina.
Hi, Kerby. Oh, gosh, I could cry. This is fun, talking to you live. What a wonderful trip that was. And like I told the girl, I was such a pleasure to meet your wife and to walk around Israel with a guy that is a walking dictionary, encyclopedia. I don't know what else to use for you, but you gave it all. And I look back and know everything about that trip. If anybody asked me, I could give them a sermon on my trip. But I just wanted to let you know I added to your fundraising. I did the 360 plan.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm so looking forward to just keep encouraging you, because this world we live in, I know we're not citizens of this world. We're citizens of heaven. But it's a rough world, and it's getting tougher and tougher for these kids. And I have grandkids that I pray for. And Kerby, I just wish I could just knock them on the heads and say, listen to Point of View. Just about anybody that doesn't know you. I don't know if you remember, we took a little census, of all the people that were on the bus that knew about Point of View. And there were some that didn't. But by the time we got home, they did.
Well, again, I know that you had given to this, and here is a live testimony from Sherry in South Carolina. And so every once in a while, when they call to those women over on the other side of that glass, they bring at least one of those calls over.
They
and
do.
Sherry actually became one of those. So, Sherry, thanks for calling in today with your testimony.
You're welcome, Kerby. God bless.
That's awesome. 1-800-347-5151. That's what Sherry did. She picked up the phone and she called 1-800-347-5151. She joined the Truth Team at $1 a day. She's going to be receiving the Bible stick from Faith Comes by Hearing we just talked about. And you can even give at a couple other levels as well. Why don't you describe those real fast?
Let me just mention real quickly, and those of you watching online, again, I will hold up these little booklets because these have become extremely popular.
Yes, they have.
And here, for example, we have ones on Sharia law and the politicized culture, making your vote count, homosexual theology, even on privacy and surveillance, the Second Amendment, capitalism and socialism. And for $45 a month or more, you can receive those in addition to the Bible stick.
That's right.
And, of course, everyone receives the Outlook magazine. And so that's just a really incredible deal. But also, some might even say, I'm willing to support you at $100 a month, which means you'll receive the Bible stick, you'll receive those booklets, of course, the Outlook magazine, and the Amazon Echo Dot. A little bit later, we're going to be talking about what we are going to be doing so that Echo Dot will be giving biblical answers, too.
That's
We
exciting.
figured out some
Yep.
other ways to extend the ministry of Point of View, but we can only do it with your help. We need your financial gifts. And again, this is a pledge. You don't have to have all the money right now, but we really do want to challenge you to do what you can to support this ministry. And as we go to a break, this is a perfect time to call, because in just a minute, we're going to talk with Michael Farris. He is now the CEO of Alliance Defending Freedom. He is the one that actually argued the case before the Supreme Court, before that with the Homeschool Legal Defense Association,
That's right.
and also the founder of the Patrick Henry College, and on and on. And so this is a great time for you to call so you won't miss anything. Call right now. That number is 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. Brad, how many should we call for this time
I'd
to
love to
support?
see 8 of you call 1-800-347-5151 and double your money as you call. We'd love you to do that, and we invite you to do that. And you can also give at pointofview.net.
A match on the line. So again, we will double your money. Call right now, 800-347-5151. We'll be right back.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
You may have noticed that sometimes people who talk about the need to practice civility need to take their own advice. In the past, this has often been a problem for progressives. They talk about civility, but often engage in name-calling and vilifying others. Their dialogue is anything but civil. Even the previous president was sometimes guilty of saying one thing and doing another. But lately, it has been conservatives who have been guilty of violating the proposed rules for civil dialogue. What brought this on has been the strident statements by some of the students who survived the school shooting in Parkland. Let's just look at the bashing and sliming of David Hogg. He has been called a high school bully. Some erroneously speculated that he may not have been at the school the day of the shooting, and one commentator made fun of him because he was rejected by certain colleges. By the way, these examples are from what you might call mainstream conservative commentators. Of course, there have always been people and groups on the fringe who engage in what has been called conspiracy mongering. Those groups spread false rumors about David Hogg giving a Nazi salute. There have been the false story about the Parkland students tearing up a constitution. These stories are so extreme they hardly deserve a response. But the other examples I gave came from people who are respected in the conservative world and speak at conferences and conventions. The real test of civility is how you respond to someone who does not treat you in a civil manner. I think we all realize that high school students are going to say some things that are not well informed. Students who have been through a traumatic event like a school shooting are going to be saying things with anger and emotion. The test of civility is not to respond in kind. Romans 12:21 reminds us, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. That is an important principle to follow in the midst of these contentious debates. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For more information about issues covered on Viewpoints, visit pointofview.net. Pointofview.net. Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Hey, this is John Stonestreet, the host of Breakpoint and the president of the Colson Center for Christian Worldview. As a champion of Christians thinking clearly about what's happening in the culture from a Christian worldview, there are a few people that I look to for more clarity and confidence and providing clear answers to the big questions that our culture is asking. And Kerby Anderson, I love what happens on Point of View each and every day. And anytime I get the opportunity to be a guest on the program, I always think that Kerby is the best interviewer in the business. I encourage you to support Point of View with your prayers and with your financial support.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
The future is now, and that's one of the reasons why we encourage you to pick up the phone and make that phone call. Or, of course, some of you, if you would want to simply go to the website, pointofview.net, you can obviously make a donation as well. We have a number of individuals on the other side of the glass in front of the phones waiting for your phone call. So we certainly do need to hear from you. Brad Fisk in studio with us, and in just a few minutes we're going to be talking with our good friend Michael Farris. But give us an update, first of all,
Real
Brad.
Quick, just a couple of thank yous. Thanks to Tracy from North Carolina with your gift, a single gift, and another single gift coming in from Russell from North Carolina as well. So 2 in a row from North Carolina. So thanks for hanging in there. We got a few states missing here so in the roll call. But it's 1-800-347-5151. A reminder, by the way, every gift that you give up to $46,000 is going to be matched dollar for dollar thanks to Foster Freeze, who I mentioned right at the end of the last hour. He jumped in with that, and thank you for that generosity. But, ladies and gentlemen, $46,000 is an awesome number to match. And that means that perhaps you have some means to give a $5,000 gift or to give $7,500 gift. Every single gift and every monthly gift will be doubled up to $46,000.
You know, I do know that some other individuals would like to step forward and have a match gift, but I would need to take care of this one first, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so.
And it's going to take a little bit more. And so, again, as much as we appreciate a gift of any size and any amount, I want to at least challenge some of you that have the means, because God has blessed you, to give a larger gift. That's so right. That we can begin to work our way through that $46,000 gift challenge that was just dropped on our laps by Foster Freeze just a few minutes ago.
Because we don't want to leave it on the table.
No, we certainly don't.
We really don't want to do that. So with your very best gift. And again, I realize there's people sitting there, I can give $5. That's all I can do right now.
That's good.
That is perfectly fine.
Right.
It is not the amount that's at issue here. It's participation, and where do you stand in regards to the culture wars? Where's your heart, and what's going on, and where are the challenges coming from? And our next guest is going to be able to answer that question
let's
quite
spend
well.
some time talking with Michael Farris. Of course, he was on with us recently because we had a chance to talk with him after he actually presented the oral arguments just a few weeks ago on what was called the Reproductive Fact Act. But again, if you're not familiar with Michael Farris, of course, we've just already mentioned the fact that everything from Patrick Henry College, the Homeschool Legal Defense Fund, of course, you're very familiar with that, having been a homeschooler yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now the president, CEO, and general counsel of Alliance Defending Freedom. Michael Farris, this is a busy time for you because you have two very important cases before the Supreme Court. I can't remember a time when you had two that you had to maintain at the same time, but this is really an exciting time for ADF, isn't it?
It is indeed. And Kerby, thank you for having me on the program again. And yes, the Supreme Court has two important free speech cases that are of great interest to your audience and to believers and freedom-loving people all over the country. One is the Masterpiece Cake Shop case from Colorado that my colleague Christian Wagner argued on behalf of Jack and ADF. And Jack Phillips is the cake shop artist, and the court will decide that case before the end of the term in June. And then the so-called Reproductive Fact Act case, which tries to silence pro-life pregnancy centers in California, I argued in the court in March. And so we're waiting for both of those very important free speech cases to see if in one case the government can compel you to say things you don't want to say in order to promote same-sex marriage, in the other case to silence you from saying what you don't want to say in an effort to try to stop people from encouraging women to choose life.
Well, again, the California case is one that is bizarre in a number of ways, and we have posted, again, your article that came out as you were about ready to argue that case before the Supreme Court. It's bizarre in, number one, that it says that only pro-life centers are subject to the law. They so constrained it so that it only applied to pregnancy centers, and if that's not bad enough, then it also mandates that the National Institute of Family and Life Advocates have to publicize those kind of abortions that are available. And I love the question that Justice Neil Gorsuch asked, and that is, doesn't California have enough ways to publicize abortion? Why are you forcing pro-life groups to publicize abortion? So this is a very bizarre case, and it is amazing to me that it passed the California Assembly, the California Senate. It was signed by the governor, and it was even confirmed and ratified by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So it's amazing to me how bizarre some of that is. But again, it is one of those cases where you would hope and pray that the Supreme Court would have some common sense and strike this law down, wouldn't you?
Well, we're very hopeful the court is going to reverse the decision of the Ninth Circuit and strike this law down as being unconstitutional. But, remember, it's California. And California is not just merely far more liberal than most of the country. They actually have adopted a philosophy that they're going to silence people that they disagree with. Now, on the surface, this is about forcing pro-life centers to post a poster for abortion in their lobbies and say, if you want to get a free abortion, call the state of California. Here's the phone number. But they know that pro-life centers won't do that. And if they won't do it, then they can shut them down. And that's their real goal. I mean, they don't expect any material number of women to be responding to these forced advertisements in the abortion centers. They're really trying to silence their voices, and it's a backwards way of doing it, using compelled speech to achieve silence. But that's the real motive of California.
Well, and that's, again, those two cases, whether it's you are a baker in Colorado and we are going to force you to bake a cake and design a cake for something you disagree with, when Jack Phillips on other occasions has rejected offers because he disagreed with it on moral grounds or ethical grounds, we're going to force these pro-life centers to advertise something that it goes against them. And another case which you don't have, but certainly I know you're well aware of compelled speech, of that is if you are part of a union, we're going to use your money to actually endorse candidates and to promote policies you disagree with. It seems to me right now that if the Supreme Court rules the way we hope that it would, we're going to have a very beneficial kind of situation in the future in terms of this issue of compelled speech. If the courts rule the other way, it's going to be a real difficult time for you at the Alliance Defending Freedom or First Liberty or American Center for Law and Justice, whatever. And this is why these compelled speeches are so important this year, aren't they?
Indeed. You've analyzed it extremely well. And it's really a decision about whether we're going to remain a free country or not. Because if political correctness can go beyond just what the government wants to say. So the California legislature and governor want to use their powers to promote whatever issues they want for political correctness. That's one thing. But when they start forcing other people, private parties, using their own resources to give the state's message, we've lost any semblance of a free country at that point. And so without the ability to say what you want to say and believe what you want to believe, without the government forcing you to either get out of business, in Jack Phillips' case, and get out of the wedding cake business, or to close down your pregnancy center because you're not going to promote abortions, the real effort is to shut down anybody that they disagree with. And that kind of bullying and censorship has no place in a free America.
Well, that's why we are doing what we're doing, Brad.
You know, I'll tell you, you guys are spot on here with this, because I can't think of a better example, you guys, of why Point of View should exist to give voice to this very kind of thing, because you're not going to hear any favorable common sense on the mainstream media or anywhere else in the culture except here at Point of View. So we ask you to please step up during this break. You won't miss any content if you give us a call right now at 1-800-347-5151. Oh, by the way, we have a $46,000 match on the table.
Yes.
Every dollar you give, single or monthly, will be doubled. 800-347-5151 and on the net.
Yeah, again, pointofview.net. And please give us a call, 800-347-5151.
Come on, let's go.
Be right back.
For years, we've been working for change in the future, voting for candidates who will appoint good justices, fighting to end abortion and protect religious liberty. The opportunity to finally achieve the change we've been working for is now. We've got an apparently solid justice for the Supreme Court, and strong rumors another opening may be imminent, a chance to shift the court from illegitimate judicial activist lawmaking to constitutional faithfulness for decades to come. There is renewed support for freedom of conscience and religion, an administration committed to upholding the law. No, not perfect, sometimes maddening, but arguably better than we've seen in any of our lifetimes. And the future is now. It's time for informed citizens, informed Christian disciples to keep the pressure on, to be faithful members of the Point of View Truth Team. Seize this moment. Make an important move. Call 800-347-5151 or visit pointofview.net/team. Together, we can finally achieve real and lasting change. 800-347-5151 and pointofview.net/team.
Point of View will continue after this. for listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Back once again, it is our Truth Team Week, Truth Team 360. And, of course, we have in studio with us Brad Fisk, and we're talking with Michael Farris, who is the president and CEO of the General Counsel for the Alliance Defending Freedom. But before we get any further, I guess, Brad, we do need to point out we have a $46,000 match that Foster Freeze dropped on the table just before he walked out the door. So we need to match that somewhere along the line, don't we?
Let me repeat that number. $46,000.
Why?
Thank
Because
you, Lord.
we've been around 46 years.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we really do thank the Lord for that generosity. And, don't let that scare you away. In other words, look at it as an opportunity for your gift of any size, a single gift, a monthly gift. We encourage you to just pray about what God would have you do and just follow him in obedience. And we will rejoice as that gift of yours is doubled. Every dollar up to $46,000. 1-800-347-5151. We have a couple open lines at 1-800-347-5151, and you can give online. That gets doubled too. Pointofview.net. Pointofview.net.
One of the things I wanted to talk with Michael Farris about is his previous incarnation, if you will, when he was with, of course, the Homeschool Free Legal Defense Fund.
Yep.
And one of the things that we talked about earlier on the program was just the scared parents right now because they've seen these shootings. And I'm thinking about Wesley, who told us about the fact that his parents decided to homeschool him and his sisters because his parents listened to Point of View. First Marlon Maddox and then Penna Dexter and myself and others. And he really, because of a Christian worldview, now has his own ministry to restore a godly culture. But before we get back to some of these legal issues, Michael, I know that you have been looking at the homeschool issue for many years, homeschooling your kids as well. And that is one other aspect of Point of View, because we have been always trying to promote the homeschool movement. There was a time when there was a threat to homeschoolers, and, of course, you have spoken about the value of having a program like Point of View to emphasize the importance of homeschooling and educating your kids.
Well, Kerby, I will never forget back in 1993, or 94 rather, when Marlon Maddox was the first person on the air to talk about H.R. 6, which was a bill that was Congress would have devastated the homeschooling movement. And because you guys launched, others eventually came around and helped as well, other programs, but Point of View was the first. And it set a record for the number of people contacting Congress, and homeschooling freedoms were preserved. And so that memory is something that I will cherish my entire life and has made me a fan of Point of View ever since. That I've seen firsthand that you getting the truth out to people actually produces freedom-oriented results that matter in people's lives. And so it's great. And the homeschooling movement's been blessed, and of course, there are a lot of reasons to homeschool. Safety is one of them, but the biggest reason is to make sure that your kids believe believe in this country, believe in freedom. And what we see happening in far too many instances is children's values are being changed, not at church, not at home, but by the media and by public education that is taking them away from a biblical worldview and an American-loving and a freedom-loving worldview into an area where we don't recognize the America that's being built by those who have a contrary worldview.
Again, I'd love to hear from some of you that are homeschool families. We certainly do need your financial support as well. 1-800-347-5151. Michael, one of the other things I wanted to talk about is that you were very much involved in what came to later be called the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, passed in 1993. Back then, it wasn't even that controversial. We had very leading Democrats that believed that that was a good idea. The last time somebody actually tried to consider a Religious Freedom Restoration Act was in the state of Indiana. Of course, that individual went on to be our vice president. But we went from a time in which everybody thought that something like the Religious Freedom Restoration Act was a good idea to the fact that it's now so controversial, I'm not sure it could be passed in any other state legislature. Doesn't that emphasize the need for the Alliance Defending Freedom and Point of View?
Oh, indeed, on both counts. The Religious Freedom Restoration Act, I was indeed involved. In fact, I'm the guy who named it. It sounds fancier than it was, but it was,
yes.
Nobody else had a better suggestion. We shepherded that through with very broad support. In fact, it passed the House of Representatives unanimously in the United States Senate, 98-2, and so it was overwhelmingly supported. Bill Clinton signed it into law, and broad support. But today, because religious freedom now is understood to be contrary to the extremes of the gay rights movement, religious freedom has fallen on hard times, and people are preferring to force Christians in particular, but anybody else who has a religious objection to participating in same-sex weddings and the like. They don't like laws like the Religious Freedom Restoration Act because they do, in fact, provide protection. And so the First Amendment should be providing the protection in the first place, but the Supreme Court got that one wrong. And so that's one of the goals of ADF. We are setting out to try to achieve 4 what we call generational wins. One is to reverse Roe versus Wade. One is to return marriage, the issue of marriage to the states. A third is to reverse that Smith decision that caused the whole religious freedom problem in the country in the first place, and make sure that the Free Exercise Clause is robustly protecting all Americans' religious freedom and not being forced to say things you don't want to say and to refrain from doing things that God would have you to do. And so those protections, and then restoring parents' rights, those are our big goals, and free speech on college campuses rounds it out. And those are the things that where the clash points are with the culture right now. And if we can do those things in the next 10 years, we will have achieved a great thing for our generation. That's the central goals of ADF right now.
And again, I might just mention your website is on our website here, adflegal.org. I encourage every listener to support you. Mm-hmm. And Brad, we might even mention that the beginning of ADF came from people like Jim Dobson, who you at that time were working for, and Marlon Maddox sitting here, and Larry Burkett. And we can go through the long list of individuals that found that this was an important organization. And this is one of those times where if you've ever prayed for the Supreme Court, 2 of these very important cases about compelled speech, which are the ADF cases, the one of Jack Phillips out of Colorado, and then the other one which is involved with, again, the National Institute of Family and Life Advocates. If these go the right way, we're going to be in a much better way for our children and grandchildren. If they go the other way, it's going to be hard times.
That's right. Michael, I'm assuming you guys are developing plans for this when these decisions come down either way, but if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about what are you guys thinking about as follow-up? Because we talk a lot here about the freedom as we vote and as we exercise that privilege of how that could affect the Supreme Court. The future of the court is really up in the air a bit, isn't it?
It is. The follow-up is actually probably doesn't depend from one sense on whether we win or lose, because the other side is going to come after us with everything they've got.
That's right.
Whether win or lose. Remember, the Boy Scouts won their case in the Supreme Court on this issue, and they came after their funding sources and basically did an economic boycott on the Boy Scouts, forcing them to turn the tide and adopt the gay agenda. And so that's what's going to happen. I expect that we will win both of these cases. Now, I don't have any guarantee of that, but that's my reasonable hope. And the other side is going to do everything. We'll see them cancel people's insurance policies and banking relationships and insurance relationships. They're going to increase the amount of legislative activity to try to force new ways of counteracting people who won't join in celebration of same-sex weddings. And so the other side will not relent, and we must gird up our loins and get ready to fight back. And so it's one of the reasons I want to, say that I want to encourage everyone listening to support Point of View. I appreciate them considering helping ADF as well, but Point of View has performed a valuable service in this arena for a long, long time. And if you're listening and being blessed, then it's time to return the blessing.
Well, again, thank you for your partnership.
Yes.
Michael Farris, just always great to have you on the program with us.
Appreciate you guys, and just keep up the not just good work, but excellent work for the kingdom of God and for the freedom of this country.
Thank you. Brad, just before we take a break here, we still have that match on the table, and we encourage people to join with us right now. How can they do so?
$46,000 match challenge. It's a dollar for dollar match. Every dollar you give is doubled. 1-800-347-5151. 1-800-347-5151. 5151. The lines are open right now for you to call and make your very best monthly or single gift.
Again, pointofview.net is another way to give, but most importantly, we have people waiting by the phones right now. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151.
Welcome to the First Liberty Briefing. I'm Jeremy Dice. The U.S. Department of Justice recently announced that it will update the U.S. Attorney's Manual, creating a new section giving special attention to religious liberty. Updates to such a manual are sometimes viewed as routine, but they tend to reflect the values and priorities of the Department of Justice and function as a sort of roadmap for the department's coming years. The updates announced in the new manual requires the nation's U.S. attorneys to not only identify a dedicated point of contact on litigation having to do with religious liberty, but also requires coordination of any such litigation directly with the central office in Washington, D.C. In other words, Attorney General Sessions is announcing that his office will be very hands-on in lawsuits involving our first freedom. When the Department of Justice announced the updated U.S. Attorney's Manual, then Associate Attorney General Rachel Brand explained, quote, "Religious liberty is an inalienable right protected by the Constitution, and defending it is one of the most important things we do at the Department of Justice." Clearly, the days of abandoning protections in the law for religious liberty, including bipartisan laws like the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, may be a thing of the past. The critical leadership of the Attorney General and his staff to protect religious liberty for all Americans will do much to strengthen all of our core freedoms. To learn how First Liberty is protecting religious liberty for all Americans, visit firstliberty.org.
Hi, I'm Kelly Shackelford, President and Chief Counsel of First Liberty Institute. You can protect your religious freedom by going to firstliberty.org to download your free Religious Liberty Protection Kit. Our attorneys created kits for churches, ministries, Christian schools, military members, students, and teachers, and the workplace. Get your Religious Liberty Protection Kit at firstliberty.org. That's firstliberty.org.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now. Michael Youssef.
I tell you, I always look forward to being with you, Kerby. You truly give me a good intellectual challenge. In any way that you are gifted, or God called you to do, as long as you are involved in some way, and that is the plea I have with your listeners, Kerby, that please do not just listen to a program like this and then go, so well, that was an interesting thing. No, I want to challenge you. Get involved. Find out what Kerby Anderson is doing. Find out what other ministries are doing. Get involved, because it is only when the believers really take their faith seriously that can we turn the world upside down. I believe that with all my heart.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Good friend Michael Yosef, and I might just mention that we've had a chance to hear from him and John Stone Street and Sean McDowell and Gary Bauer. By the way, Gary Bauer will be with us tomorrow along with Jim Dennison of Dennison Forum. In the previous hours, we've had Jerry Tuma with us talking about tariffs and the stock market. We've had Foster Freeze with us talking about Rachel's Challenge. We just had, of course, Michael Farris talking about these cases before the Supreme Court. And, of course, Brad Fisk, Foster Freeze, just before he walked out the door said, you know, you've been around here for 46 years. Marlon Maddox started this show back in 1972.
Mm-hmm.
10 years later, we went up on satellite. Of course, we're now on hundreds of stations. And he said, 46, okay, 46 times 1,000. So I'll have a challenge gift here of $46,000. We haven't quite met that yet, to put it mildly, right?
And we haven't. And let me help you with something, because some of you may be thinking, well, they don't need my money. They don't need me because you got the $46,000. No. That's not true at all, because we have a goal that is not the goal, but we have the need to pay the bills and continue the ministry and continue doing what we're doing far above the $46,000. So please don't think those wrong thoughts. We do need your help, and we're not begging. We're simply asking you to pray and obey. See what God would have you do, and then follow in obedience to Him. 1-800-347-5151. 1-800-347-5151. I'll go through a real quick batch of thank yous here. Joyce from St. Helen Island, thank you for that gift. And thank you, Bernalda from Stockton, California, with your single gift. Doubled, by the way. Here is a Club 360. Now, instead of $30 a month, it's going to be $60 a month. Those monthly gifts during match challenges are huge.
Yes.
So please don't pass this time by, because all the monthly gifts you give are doubled for the entire year. So thank you for that gift. Rose from Rockport, Texas, thank you for your single gift. That is doubled. And here's another $30 a month from Summerville, South Carolina. And we had a listener, I'm not going to put the two together, but she actually wrote in the comments that she became convicted about abortion from Point of View.
There's a good example of that.
Right
and
there.
And again, we've had some individuals say that they have supported this ministry because they homeschool their kids. I mentioned earlier one that was an individual that had read about this book that was promoting homosexuality in the schools. She said, it just can't be that bad. Kerby, I think you've engaged in hyperbole in your appeal letter. She went and took the book out because she found it was in her daughter's school, and it was worse than the letter said, and she found even worse books in the schools. So then Lori wanted to ask if indeed her child had checked out the book. The librarian, with a straight face, said, well, that's private. She says, it's not private. This is a 12-year-old. This is my daughter. I need to see if she's checked it out. And, of course, then started a website to let parents know about what was in the library. And because of her work, protected hundreds, maybe even thousands of students from some of the kinds of things that happen in the classes and in the library. So, again, you just have to check out some of the things we've been talking about. But we also have had a number of callers that wanted to share their own testimony of, indeed, how they have supported this ministry and why you need to support us as well.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Point of View is a part of my daily life, and I know of no other radio program that helps its listeners to develop, articulate, and then defend a biblical worldview as successfully as yours does. For those reasons, I consider it an honor to be able to support Point of View financially, and I would encourage all of your listeners, both young and old, to prayerfully consider doing the same.
I just turned your program on, and I want to just let you know I was working in an abortion clinic when abortion first became legal, and I thought I was helping women. And the Lord showed me in a very powerful way, as He removed the veil from me, what exactly I'd been involved in. And I am proof of forgiveness. And I want to just let you know how much I appreciate just getting the truth out.
I really appreciate your program. I don't get to listen to it every day because I have to work, but it's a really a blessing to me and to all of us.
You know, my husband and I take so many extra precautions to guard our children, and it is a huge effort on the part of Christian parents to do that. I wanted to thank y'all for everything you do each day to inform Christian families and our community about the things we can do, and just the way you're so informative. I listen to you daily and love you guys and appreciate you so much.
I just appreciate all you guys do. I mean, I learned so much, and it's amazing what you teach that I say to other people, and they look at me like, where did you hear that? So I appreciate you guys. So thank you for all you do.
Point of View, Truth Team 360. The future is now.
Appreciate what we do to protect your children, and there is a dangerous world out there.
It is.
And Brad, you have a number of grandchildren, and I have one, and I'm going to catch up one of these days. But the bottom line is I'm worried and concerned about the kind of world that they are born into and are growing up in. And this is one of the other reasons why I am so dedicated to doing what we do here at Point of View. And that's why, without hesitation, I ask you to support this ministry so we can help equip you to be more effective in your community.
That's right. And there's a match challenge on the table right now of $46,000. And you know what that means, Kerby, to me, is that there's an individual or two listening right now within the sound of our voices that have a $5,000 or a $7,500 or a $10,000 gift they could give right now and have that gift doubled.
Yes.
So there's not too many opportunities these days in this kind of work where that's available to you who have that means and capacity. But I'm also thinking of that single parent who has a couple of kids and maybe even trying the homeschooling route. And that $10 that she's giving is her, Dr. Dobson would say, blood money.
Yes.
Okay. So we do not value one over the other by any stretch of the imagination. Ladies and gentlemen, we simply invite you to be a part of this team. We cannot do this without you. You will hear things just today.
Yes.
You heard things today that you would never hear anywhere else. 1-800-347-5151. 1-800-347-5151. And pointofview.net is where you can give online. Pointofview.net's 24/7, 365. Yes. You can go there anytime to make your gift. You don't have to be dependent on a phone center. Pointofview.net. Click on the donate button, just a little bit of information, and you're done.
Might just mention, too, that even though we're going off the air here in just a little over a minute or so, you could still call. We'll still take those phone calls, but we do need to hear from you. And as you mentioned about size, any size is gift. No gift is too big. No gift is too small. But now we can supersize your gift because we have this match. And so that's one of those things that we really need to do because there is a real need for us to do what we can to support this ministry. So let me encourage you, if anything, you can call right now. That number is 800-347-5151. And, of course, pointofview.net.
Hey, I just got back from running over to the window, and we have 7 people that are visiting with each other and having a grand time of fellowship, but they're not taking a call. So 7 people right now, 1-800-347-5151. Would 7 of you call right now with your gift and have your money doubled?
Let's give them something to do.
Yes.
And, of course, we are running out of time. So the first day of Truth Team 360, Truth Team Week, is coming to an end. So, again, we need to hear from you. 800-347-5151. We need what? 7.
7 callers right now. 800-347-5151.
Does Point of View make any difference? Dr. Eric Walsh would say it does. Dr. Walsh was fired as district health director for the state of Georgia not because of anything he did or failed to do on the job, but because of sermons he preached in his local church. What does that have to do with Point of View? Jeremy Dice of First Liberty represented Dr. Walsh, and the state of Georgia ended up paying a large settlement for their religious discrimination. And Jeremy Dice became an attorney specializing in defending religious liberty greatly because of what he learned listening to Point of View Radio as a child. That is the kind of difference you make when you join the Truth Team. So many victories we've fought and prayed for appear to be within reach. Now is the time to press toward the goal. The future is now when you call 800-347-5151 or take a moment and visit pointofview.net/team. Together, we can finally achieve real and lasting change. 800-347-5151 and pointofview.net/team. Point of View is produced by Point of View Ministries.